Testing. Am I live? I think I might be live. Pretty sure I'm live. I'm live on air. People are watching me right now in my shiny face. Guys, I might be like 30 seconds late. Summer camp cleanup was insane. Wow. It is amazing how much mess a human being can make in only a couple hours. Anyway, hello. I just biked home as fast as I can in very hot weather, uphill. I stood in front of the AC for a little while to dry off. We are back with all new game developer professionals to talk about the new Sonic Frontiers drop. The main thing being the Cyberspace levels. The long-awaited Cyberspace levels have finally been revealed. Yes, it was a couple days ago. So new is subjective, but it's new for us, okay? And also you haven't seen this exclusive type of content where we have professional game industry folk come in and break it down. Just because I've been in the community for a really long time, and I've also done the analysis thing, and this is no shame to anybody who does this, but I've been in the community for a really long time. So eventually, when you follow enough news cycles and you see Sonic Tuber, 30 go, I think this game will be good because it looks like it has the things that I'm hoping for. But because I've been doing this for so long, and I covered Frontiers and not Frontiers. Oh geez, I hope Frontiers does well because I hope people don't pull a Wii U on Frontiers and not know the difference, because I keep mixing up Forces and Frontiers, at least name wise, or at least when I'm speaking it. Anyway, so the hope is that with Forces, I felt like the marketing was a little bit misleading. It's like they knew exactly what fans wanted to hear, but weren't quite ready to deliver what fans were expecting. And so we had this disconnect. With Frontiers, because of that experience and me kind of, looking inward and being like, okay, maybe like, what can I do next news cycle? What can I do to make the next news cycle coverage better and more beneficial for everybody? And the only thing I could think of was, taking advantage of the connections I've gathered over all the years, grabbing some people I genuinely believe know what they're talking about, and trying to find the middle ground. So I like to think that that's kind of, I've been pretty good at doing that on Tails' channel, trying to find a middle ground. I try not to tackle discussions about like what I want. I try to perceive what I'm hearing people say, and yeah, I follow my friends, so there is a little bit of an echo chamber in there, but I do make a distinct effort to speak to people and make friends that don't think the exact same way that I do. Pox, who was on the first one of these we did, loves Sonic Unleashed, and that's a mixed bag for myself. I have to say this every single time I say that though. I like the content in Unleashed. I just don't like the pace-breaking metal collecting, and when I talk about the game, I'm talking about the campaign. If I had a full 100% save file to play whatever piece of content in that game I want, it would be a very different story. But that's not the game you buy. So no roast to the literal art in Unleashed. I literally cannot do a live stream of a playthrough of it because of the way it's structured, and that's a shame. Anyway, enough of covering my ass with opinions. We're gonna introduce our very first guest. And full transparency, I've actually not met this individual. Some of these game devs I've met off stream and had a chance to talk, but this will be my first time meeting Nimso. Nimso is the one who made the most viewed, I believe, the first most viewed, because there's probably an obscure one in there I'm forgetting, but the most viewed game dev Sonic Frontiers analysis. And full transparency, Nimso inspired me to do this indirectly, in the way that like I felt like, hey, I could do something similar but also have a Tales channel spin on it that we try to have more than one person so that we really feel like we're getting a well-rounded outlook on the subject material. I just feel like that's the right way to use Tales channel when I can. Of course, sometimes I just have to be all by myself. You are not late. We're about to get started into the game dev talks at any point, because it's about to get really packed in here when the game devs come on and we start talking, and we're gonna go, and it's a lot of information. Honestly, it's unclear if this should be a video or a live stream. The live stream element is cool because you can donate and get your question answered right away, because of course we're gonna notice it much more when we're talking code and stuff I barely understand. I'll try my best to be the ignoramus and try to translate things for you. I'll try to ask the questions that people that aren't game developers, because I'm not, would ask. The goal of this, I'm reminding the game devs as well and the viewers, the goal is to try to find something constructive that is realistic to improve on by release date. There's no need to focus on what they could have done when they started planning the game, because that would be for a different game and a different video. I think it's helpful to talk about what they can do next when we're done with Frontiers. But let's talk about what we can do now. And believe it or not, we can have an impact on something before it releases. Companies don't like to make you think you can have an effect on it, because that takes work. So they'll do everything in your power, or everything in their power, to convince you they can't, but they can. And I'm just reminding you of the power that you hold. So let's use today to figure out what is realistic, constructive. Let's be hype. Let's be excited, but realistically, so we know what to be hyped about. And that probably can be the perfect segue into introducing Nimso. I hope this is the right one. Yep, Nimso. So let's get Nimso in here. I'm gonna start the call. Mixed media, you don't have to quite join quite yet, but you will be getting a ring. We're gonna first start with Nimso, and then we're gonna move on to Lyanna later on, who is an environmental 3D environmental design artist at Steelwool Studios, which made the most recent Five Nights at Freddy's game. So look forward to that. We're gonna do about, I'd say we'll try 30 minutes for each guest. And if we need to do more after that, which we probably will, because there's so much content, we'll come back. You are okay to turn on camera, Nimso, but in order to be shown on stream, I'm just gonna have to drag you over to my other monitor, but you're welcome to do that. I believe Nimso has his, he's got a unique setup for us today. So Nimso, as I get your camera on here, why don't you introduce yourself? They'll see you real soon.
So yeah, hey, game developer. That's kind of the main thing on my end. I've been doing game development as an indie developer for many years, probably about 10-15 years now. Since like high school days, I started wanting to be game development, and right now I'm kind of in the industry right now. I'm at Ubisoft, working on some VR projects, including Assassin's Creed. So that's like my main thing right now, working on VR at Ubisoft. And then my plans are to continue going completely indie after that and carry on with my projects. I have a bunch of projects in my own library, and then the character down here, you can see Tubby Supercat on my camera if it's on screen, is one of them. So there we go.
Oh, sweet. So wait, again, I was trying to...
Hold on, I forgot. I need to...
Oh, wait, what's happening?
There we go.
Oh, there's Sonic. Sweet. This is really cool. Okay, so if you haven't seen Nimso's videos yet, you definitely should check him out. The setup is normally like this. He's definitely always flexing his skills, which is great to prove what you're able to do. It informs the stuff that we're talking about. It's really IRL, like, practice what you preach, you know, strut. I'm sorry, I literally am melting. I'm sweating and I have this big light on me. Let's talk Frontiers, because I'm a lot better at talking about Sonic than I am doing introductions. However, in a nutshell, this setup is incredibly impressive. So, Nimso, let's start with your most up-to-date feelings on Frontiers as a whole, because things may have changed, you know, since you've seen the Cyberspace levels. For whatever reason, it seems like a lot of people are bouncing back and forth with the reactions on this game, Nimsoni. Like, I feel like I'll hear somebody one day be like, this is awful, 06 level, and then it'll bounce to like, no, this is like really good. This reminds me of Generations. Where would you put yourself on that gradient, that scale?
Yeah. So I was oh man, I'm a bit of an unusual one. I'm not the regular sort of Sonic fan that'll speak up randomly about Sonic stuff. I don't really take much of an effort on sort of speaking about Sonic in general. But there's a few things that I've been generally frustrated with, which is the sort of boost style game. And I'm very much an old classic Sonic Heroes type. That's kind of my favorite.
What about SA1 and SA2 though?
Yeah, adventure. But Sonic Heroes really captured the elements of that I loved.
Okay.
Where you have just enough control and, you know, skipping the character swapping. Even then, I would have loved it, but the character swapping was pretty genius in that game. I think it did a damn good job. And yeah, I do like the adventure style purely because I'm kind of a physics dev. It's what I do. I kind of do physics in VR these days anyway.
So that's a good... So guys, I'm going to say that again in case you missed it, but Nimsoni works with physics very frequently. So that's something we're probably going to be talking about a lot, and that's something that's a hot topic for a lot of us. So let's make sure to not forget about that. Let's use that as a segue. So, physics. How do I turn that into a question about Frontiers? So actually, I do have something. There was, in the most recent Nintendo Switch gameplay we saw, Sonic went off of a ramp at one point, and he did this weird, like, it looks like it's supposed to be a trick.
Oh, yeah.
But Sonic disconnects from the wall, seemingly carrying his momentum. I don't know if that's the case, but it seems he's carrying his momentum, and it doesn't seem like the player pressed jump. Do you have any guesses as to what's going on here, or what maybe the rules are with the physics?
I feel like I think they went, well, that's something that we've seen in the previous footage, right? So in the footage where we finally got to see the Eggman sort of capsule thing that's sitting in the middle of nowhere, and there's those kind of roads that go around. You spoke about this in your last stream.
Right.
Which was where Sonic runs and then he kind of runs down the side of the wall accidentally.
Right. Yeah, it looks like he's slammed right into the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, so on one of those ledges, when he's running on that same metal plate, he does that exact move where when he falls off while running, he kind of performs the run and flips around.
Yeah.
Like that. So it's definitely an intentional thing. And what I was trying to figure out why they went with such an unusual animation. I have a feeling they're trying to replicate the sort of bouncy, falling over run that you see in the 2D games. Right? So if you look in the 2D games, I think it's the balloons when you hit a balloon or something. Usually it'll be in that type of level, like a carnival zone level, where Sonic will hit something bouncing. It's usually in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. He'll hit something, bounce up, and he'll sort of run upside down.
Oh,
like that.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Sky Sanctuary. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Sky Sanctuary is the best example. Yeah, exactly. Okay. That is what I'm seeing. But because I mean, there's definitely an intentional element to it here, but it's a very unusual one when you see it in 3D. I feel like it's. I noticed that in that first video, and I feel like it's just a really unusual animation. In fact, that leads us to the animation stuff, which is something I wanted to mention. Was basically, I think in terms of polish. Yeah, in terms of polish, that's the area where I want to see major changes.
Wait a minute. So I have to stop you right there because I have to flex. Sorry, I have to flex again. That's exactly what I said. That's the third person.
I listen to you. Don't worry.
No. I'm not trying to tell you because like I know you know. Like I am not the voice of authority. I just am very impressed that having no experience, I was like, I think this is realistic. I don't think it's gonna break anything, and I think it would go a long way. So what were you gonna say about it, Nimso?
It was mentioned in the last stream, and I think you were talking to Supersonic,
68, yeah.
who mentioned basically the animation stuff, which is, if it doesn't interfere with the code side of things, you probably have no problem at all, right? You probably have no problem at all just updating, just swap out some animations. And I think for the most part, that's how they build it. Like, that's how you would build a platformer in general. You wouldn't really rely too heavily on the animation to activate something. Although there is some areas where you probably would do that. I think Sonic's rail jumping, for example, when he switches rails, those kinds of things have a little bit of animation before he jumps off, and that kind of switches or activates that. So there are those kinds of areas, but for the most part, animations are something you can just replace. And I feel like, having looked at this footage, I'm still seeing animations where I would say, hey, look, quality control, you gotta upgrade those. And I think that's very easy for them to do as well. I think it's definitely something they can do with no impact to the gameplay mechanics.
Great. And like, I think that this isn't a bad thing, guys. Like, it means that we can, because animations go such a long way. We've had multiple game developers tell us this, and it doesn't mean we're attacking your favorite game. Nobody wants to hurt your feelings, right? We want to see this game be the best it can be. And like I said in previous videos, the only way we're going to be able to get this message sent to Sega is if it's clear, right? If we're focusing on momentum and all these things that are not realistic, so Sega can just easily use that as an excuse to do nothing, because it's like, well, you guys don't know what you want. But if everyone is like, no, I really do think that animations are what this game really needs, then I think we really can get it. I really do think we can get it. I don't think it's going to cause any problems with the game. I don't think it's going to change the game entirely, but it certainly will make it more enjoyable and satisfying to interact with the world. And it seems like they're trying to immerse us and make this world feel real. So, like, not only is it going to benefit just the general movement and feeling, but it's going to help your immersion and actually fit with the goal of this specific product. Yeah, so I don't even have any organic segues this time around. So we covered animation. Yeah. How do you feel about, because a lot of people weren't really sure what they were going to do with the Switch port, and since now we've seen it, people weren't sure if they were going to do a cloud streaming thing that a lot of high-end games have done, but they actually are running it on hardware. So I don't know if you have experience with anything similar to kind of add to that.
I would say it's probably just mobile hardware is the major thing, right? So on the VR side, we have this very same problem where the vast majority of what you want to build, you kind of have to build for a mobile device now, which is the Quest, which a lot of people will have heard of. So that's the I'm not allowed to say that anymore. Meta Quest, right? So you kind of move from what you were doing, which is PC building, and then you move to mobile. And I mean, I used to do mobile dev a long time ago, but I never really got into that. And I think realistically, they kind of planned this from the beginning. I don't think, in my mind, I was seeing it's very unlikely they'd go full cloud, right? There's no logical reason they would go cloud-based when they're planning from the very beginning of whatever engine work they had to do to get this onto that console. I felt like that would be unlikely. Where does it, cloud-based.
How do you know that they planned to make a Switch port from the beginning? Like, what are you seeing that tells you that?
Well, I don't know, really. It feels like it's always been a cross-platform thing, is what I feel like it has always been the same. So that sort of idea.
So they have the process established from Forces and stuff like that, so you would just figure why would they change it now?
Yeah, well, was Forces on Switch?
Forces totally was on Switch, and it ran on hardware. So I'm just trying to be the ignoramus, trying to translate. Are you saying that, like, they're using the Hedgehog engine too?
I'm more ignoramus, so don't worry about that.
I wouldn't say that. Let's see if we can figure this out, though. So I think what you're saying is Hedgehog Engine 2, which was used in Forces, has already the infrastructure to port to Switch, so they probably already have like some sort of automated features within Hedgehog Engine 2. to help port it?
Yeah, we need to mention that a little bit. Right, so when it comes to engine stuff, where we want to separate game engine from the visual stuff. And from what I can find out, and I've been trying to find out any information about this, and it seems it always comes up the same, which is that Hedgehog engine, whatever we're calling Hedgehog engine, is actually purely the graphics side of things.
Right.
Which obviously has a major impact on the mobile side. But that sits on top of the game engine. Now, I don't think I could find much information about the game engine. There was a little bit of and I believe this is very confusing. I believe this is just an accidental sort of, they kind of went this route and believed it. There has been a bit of a sort of rumor, should we say, that it's built on Unreal, and I don't really think that's the case. I think it is a proprietary game engine, but we don't know how much of that was carried over from the previous games or anything like that, because a lot of the things that have been happening, at least the glitches that we saw in the earlier footage, a lot of people have said that's stuff that has carried over from Forces. If that's the case, then either it's the graphics engine that's been carried over, or the gameplay engine itself, like the game engine itself.
I think it's
putting
both.
Everything together. Yeah, I have a feeling that a lot of it was carried over. If it's a proprietary engine, that's what's going to happen, because you've got something sitting on there, you're going to start with it, but that doesn't mean it's the same engine. It may be a majorly upgraded version of it.
Right, I mean, and Sonic Team, I don't know if you're aware of this. I mean, I have a lot of friends that like literally dig into the games for fun, like reverse engineers. So there's literally evidence that like Generations was built on top of Unleashed, and Lost World was built on top of Generations, and Forces was built on top of Lost World. So they totally have a history of doing that. Literally, you can find files from previous games inside the game. So we know they do that. So it's safe to assume that, yeah, Frontiers is built on top of Forces. I think there was no doubting that. So honestly, in hindsight, it's kind of silly that anyone ever thought it was going to be on cloud. So yeah, I think we can put that aside. Let's get into the meat of it. What do you think about Cyberspace now actually seeing it and not just hearing about it?
Oh, I've got some opinions that carried over from previous ideas.
Right,
from
you don't like
previous
Boost
footage,
at all, right?
Which was, I'm generally a hater of Boost.
At least you're honest.
But
Let's talk about it.
I see its merits. I see its merits, and they're kind of showing up a little bit more in this project than in previous games. And that's the surprising part, which is that I'm glad that they kind of powered down on the boost a little bit in this case, and they've almost used it as a platforming element, where, well, not necessarily platforming, but regular gameplay element. So for example, when you see those areas where he's doing a side loop, I keep calling it side loop, by the way. I know a lot of people have been calling it spin cycle, but I mean, just automatically think of washing machines when they say that.
You just said side loop, and it sounded perfectly fine to me. I didn't hear anything different.
Well, I actually said side loop, but I'll try and go with the legitimate name.
I can tell you're traumatized by YouTube comments going, actually, it's side loop.
Well, I don't get that problem. I fight back. Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Tell them.
Sorry, everyone.
It's all good.
But so when he does the side loop, a lot of the times in the footage that we've seen, they very often use boost, right, to get him running around real quick and get that sort of circle drawn nice and quickly. And that's cool, because on the one hand, I really wish he was just running that fast. When you press the side loop button, I feel like it should be an auto run forward, and then you kind of guide it. That's what I feel like it should have been. But then at the same time, using boost that way, it's showing that the boost is not an overpowered, hard to control, straightforward linear thing, right? Which opens you up on the what they call cyberspace levels to more platforming type gameplay, rather than Sonic linear straightforward boost gameplay. Which is, I don't know, this is what puts me in sort of two minds on here, because I expected, before this latest footage, I expected that they would have slightly different controls or mechanics or at least values for Sonic's movement system within the cyberspace levels. Because I thought they would be straight up Sonic Generation style, forward-facing linear levels, with that level of speed, while in the open world you have the regular Sonic movement system. I thought there might be a little bit of difference between the movements, but it seems like they're exactly the same. Which means it's more likely there's going to be more manual control platforming in those levels. So I'm kind of partly excited about it, actually. I feel that they've opened themselves up to a little bit more control. So, for example, for a nice, easy way to say it, for everyone who's kind of listening, is I think it's a step towards adventure rather than just sticking purely with the super fast boost level type thing. Whether the level design keeps up with that, I don't know. So far, we haven't seen enough to make that judgment, but there we go.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, is that since the actual game controller doesn't behave differently, seemingly, in the short footage we've seen of Cyberspace, there's no reason why Sonic can't have full control in some areas of Cyberspace. I fully anticipate them doing that for platforming, and hopefully the control is better because they're not taking kind of like a tanky Sonic designed for hallways and then forcing him to do platforming. They're taking an actual player controller that can do that in the hub world and putting them in a linear environment. So yeah, that's good. So it really does feel like the last thing we're missing is pinball physics or rolling physics, or what do you like to call it, Nimsoni? Do you were you part of the were you there for did you watch that video where we were talking about momentum? It was the most recent professional discussion.
All right, yeah, definitely. I will have definitely watched that. I can't remember the exact specific points, but I do remember.
We should stop talking. We should stop calling it momentum and call it something else, because momentum is present in like all Sonic games in some way.
Yes, except for this one. That's the funny part. Except for this one, I've seen momentum in everything. But obviously, there's also some level of how you make it look like momentum, right? Regularly, what you would deal with physics-based anything, and I need to make a little bit of a separation here. So this is the difficult part, where you got to separate between the physics engine, which is like simulating as much as accurate as possible to real world, and then some sort of custom physics that you've written, which you would do for Super Mario, you would do for Sonic the Hedgehog, you would do for platforming in general, those types of games. You would have some level of a written understanding of physics within your game world. It may not be accurate to real world, but it'll have some level of physics. Mario is the best example because he has that just right from day one, which is what, and this is what I wanted to kind of say, was the reason Mario even exists right now was because it took the concept of platforming and added physics. And that's it, just purely that. Sonic took exactly that route and added actual like round physics.
Wait, can I stop you? I'm losing you just a little bit. What does it mean to? So what would be a Mario without physics? It's getting a little abstract for me, so help me out here.
Yes, this is the difficult. This is what I'm trying to sort of gather into my discussion here.
No, this is what we're looking for. This is good.
If you imagine you press the right key on your keyboard or on your D-pad, and it moves right.
Yeah.
So you press right, and it just moves right. As opposed to what Mario does, which is you press right, and he accelerates right. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you're going to actually increase your speed in that direction. Now, while you're moving right, and you press left, he doesn't move left. He slows down on his right side. And then he moves left. And starts accelerating left, in fact. Right? And this is the coolest part, right? Which is in 3D Mario from Mario 64, possibly Sunshine. I haven't fully studied that, but Odyssey does this exactly. Mario never moves sideways or backwards anyway, like ever, in terms of his acceleration. When you press up, he's facing forward and he runs forward. When you press left, he runs forward. When you press right, he runs forward. When you press down, he runs forward. The only difference is he turns towards that direction, right? And in doing so, he accelerates into the direction he's moving. So this is where I know it's getting a little bit unusual.
The camera
to
whips
describe it this
around
way.
though to always be facing his back when he turns left, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the camera just does whatever the camera does. Even if you had a completely static camera, Mario would still move exactly as you expect him to do, right? When you press left, he accelerates in his forward direction, but turns to the left, right? That's all he does.
I think so. You're saying he's gonna slightly go forward, but then slowly curve to the left because he still has some speed in the forward direction, so he has to shift it to the left first.
He's going to turn like a vehicle, and that's it. Mario runs as a car.
So Generations has that same kind of thing, right? Where it takes some time for him to turn to the left.
All Sonic games I've seen have that same element.
Well,
now,
not Lost World, right?
I haven't played it enough to study it, but I can't even really make any statement on that.
Okay,
I have a feeling it probably does that. But in general, this is how you would write your platforming system for a nice quality AAA feeling, right? And this is how I write Tubby Supercat game, right? Which is exactly the same as sort of Super Mario style, where he only accelerates forward and then he'll actually turn into the direction. Depending on how fast he's running though, he can turn faster. So when you're standing still and let's say you want to go left, the turn is almost sudden, which is why it looks like he just immediately goes left. But he doesn't. He's accelerating forward and turns to the left very, very quickly, within a couple of frames. And just those couple of frames make it nice and smooth. It always looks like it's a real object trying to move because you understand physics naturally. This is actually one of the things that I wanted to say, and I want people to understand this, right? Which is, and I made this mention when we were having a meeting just discussing stuff at work, which is at Ubisoft. I said, the thing with physics is that you have understood it for a longer time than your actual age, right? Since before you were born, you have been experiencing physics. So that gives you an understanding of how well experienced you are in how things should move, right? You've been experiencing gravity, you've been experiencing how objects accelerate since before you were born. And that's a very long time. So you fully understand just by looking at something, whether it's moving naturally or it's moving in a weird sort of animated, rigid way. Which is why those couple of extra frames when an object turns towards the direction and accelerates in that direction, they make all the difference. And that's the little pointer that I have that frustrates me with Sonic Frontiers.
So you're not seeing him carry his actual like weight and moving left and right naturally when he shifts? Like if I were to show you Lost World gameplay right now, would you be able to compare the two?
I think so, but I don't know exactly what Lost World is like. I would have a look at it. I should have had to look at it before starting here, because that's the one game where it's very unique in that manner.
Well, it's also most important for this discussion because I think it's established that Forces or Frontiers was actually built on top of Lost World, or not directly, but Forces was built on top of Lost World, and then Frontiers was built on top of Forces. So I think it's a good one to like look at.
Right. Well, I mean, Forces has what normally people would call momentum, but also it has the regular sort of physics concepts that I'm talking about, where you have the character accelerating. Whether they accelerate, whether they always accelerate forward and turn, I don't know. Maybe not. But realistically, it's like it doesn't really matter. It's whether they accelerate or not. I'm gonna glance at the little video you've just sent me.
Yeah, we're watching the stream too.
Yeah, there's that. Oh, you're right. It does feel like he's very, very much instant moving in the direction.
So can you help like break it down for us exactly? Because I'm still I see the chat saying this is getting really deep. I just want to make sure we really understand what you're saying, because I feel like this is important, and this might be where the disconnect is when arguments happen. So I'm only pressing you because I feel like we're onto something.
Let's see if I can get a look at this myself.
I'm going frame by frame as soon as it says go, and he starts to like shift to the left.
Yeah. So if you frame by frame here, and you should be able to see it on my screen. Yeah, you should be able to see it on my screen.
Okay, let me pull that back. Sweet. Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I love showing this stuff off. Don't worry about it. So yeah, if we just frame by frame this, right? Oop, so there we go. Let me switch back to what video is it? Oh, there we go. Right. Let me just frame by frame this. And you can see here, when it says go, he immediately turns first and then accelerates. Right?
Right.
And there is acceleration. Did you see that? It's very, very slow first and then immediately goes into a run.
Yeah.
So even though it looks instant, like this, it looks instant, but there is such a tiny element of acceleration involved there. And then obviously throughout the gameplay, it's got a very sudden feel to it, right? But it has got a tiny element of it. So realistically, under the hood, that's exactly what's going on. And I think what with Frontiers, it is still doing that, but they've ramped it up to a point where the acceleration is super duper fast. And that's what I think is.
And you can't appreciate the momentum you do attain because the acceleration is way too fast.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they can very, very slightly just slow him down very, very slightly in terms of acceleration. That is if that's happening. So it would be really cool if that is the case, where just very, very slightly it would be happening.
Can we reel it into Frontiers?
I don't know.
So yeah, let's do a comparison to Frontiers 2. I can find the gameplay for you, so I can just throw you a link.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
it's just because I wanted to kind of snap to those specific frames, and of course there's the delay on the stream. So
there's also,
when it comes to those specific things, I'll kind of step through like that.
Sweet. Let's step through this one too, if possible. So this is the Nintendo Direct one that I just sent you, and then after we look at this, we'll answer some questions from the chat. We already have 2 sitting here waiting for us, so we'll just look at this gameplay footage of the new gameplay footage of the Switch version of Frontiers. We'll compare Sonic's movement to what we just saw from Lost World, and see if we can really nail down what it is we're talking about here. Because the first thing I was thinking of is it does really feel like in Generations, Sonic does take a really long time to build that momentum. Like, he does move really slowly as he accelerates. But I feel like I know for a fact my girlfriend would describe Sonic controlling like a tank, like he's really heavy. So is this like a subjective thing? Maybe it's just subjective taste, or is there a way we can kind of pinpoint what is ideal, what is for everybody?
There's a definite pain in Generations moving when you don't use boost to start running.
Right.
It has been ramped to such an extent where you feel like a tank. I think that she explained it perfectly there. You really feel like a tank in Generations when you are doing things where you're not using boost. And actually, I was watching the Game Grumps playing through. I think they've been playing through recently. And one thing you very often see is they'll keep boosting off the level whenever they're in sections where you do platforming. Because it's kind of natural to start accelerating using boost. He's just so slow at accelerating. I think Frontiers goes the exact opposite way. But there's definitely going to be an element of subjectivity there.
Yeah.
Where you want something, some people will want it a little bit fast, some people will want it a little bit slow. And I really do think that Mario captured the element of that, where it kind of feels really natural, but also very, very snappy. And I think here it's a little bit over the top. But I would really like to play Lost World to get a grasp of how, because I can see how sudden it is in there. And maybe that kind of fits in together as well. It'll probably feel similar to Frontiers.
In my experience, in this is my personal take, but I genuinely really liked how Sonic moved around, at least when I was holding the run button, and I was holding the run button at all times. So I would say scrap the run button. I did like the movement. Platforming felt better.
So there's a run button?
There's a run button in Lost World, yes.
It's like Donkey Kong, or like original Mario. You hold run. Oh wow!
Yep.
I never expected that would ever happen in a Sonic game.
Well,
but,
it didn't stay for very long.
Very intrigued. I doubt it.
It did not stay very long.
Even like Super Mario stepped away from that once they went into 3D. Because although they did do it in DS, in 64 DS, and that's purely because of the fact that you had a D-pad. So that was a different issue. But I don't think that you would need a run button in these types of games. I actually had one in Tubby Supercat and took that out now as well. Because I think not having a run button is actually better. You have the analog control instead.
People just end up holding it down the whole time, I feel like. Right? Like
that was happening in the 2D days as well, so it's not that different, but I think it was more necessary when you have such limited control. But when you've got an analog stick, especially nowadays, you've got super precise analog sticks, I think you have a little bit of control there. What they should do is just have it act as a threshold if they want, where half of the stick counts as just walking speed, and then the remainder counts as running speed. And there's no sort of analog control, it acts as a run button in itself. If they want to do something digital like that, they should just do that with the analog stick. And in fact, if you look at Mario 3D Land, they did that with that. So with the analog stick being smooth, they wanted to create the shape of the classic N64 controller. If you remember, the analog stick on the N64 controller creates the diagonal shape.
Yep.
So it's got like 8 pieces. Mm-hmm. And they created that in software for Mario 3D Land, where as you push up, it kind of magnetizes towards the perfect one of the 8 directions.
Oh,
right, so
cool.
It's not perfectly analog in rotation in the direction.
It's like always where you're going to, you're expected to go.
Great. Always expected. Yeah, and you have that problem in some of the Sonic games when you play them on PC. Because, and a lot of people will feel this, where especially in Heroes is a real bad example, where you press up and the camera's very slightly turning and you're kind of veering off course. You're trying to catch rings. It's very difficult without an analog stick. The same thing happens the other way around with Mario, where if you've got analog fully and the level is designed, very, very solid and isometric, it becomes really annoying. So yeah, you see that on both sides. One where you've got too much analog, and one where you've got not enough analog.
So do you think
But they can do that with...
it has been announced that there's going to be a slider that controls certain elements that the player can decide which elements of Sonic's movement they want to tweak. So that's really good news for you. How did you react when hearing about that?
I made a statement on that one. I think so this is a very weird one. I feel like that's it's either unusual or it's not going to be in the final game. That's what I kind of said. But it feels like they're keeping up with that, and it sounds like they are going to do something similar to that. But I don't think they're going full whack, completely analog, let you control exact details. I think what they've gone with is, when you look at some of the posts that you made, they've stated when you start the game, you've got platforming, and then you've got speed, right? Which is one's an easier way of playing, and then the other is made for speed. I think they might go very rigid like that and have just those 2 modes, but that it could be that they're just templates, and then you can actually have sliders and move them around in the final game. What I felt like was going on was that they were putting that out for the beta testing and seeing what people kind of average played, how they would averagely play. That is the worst word that I've ever used. That was absolutely not English.
But see, what's weird is the moment you started using what you consider bad speech, I was understanding you. I was following you so well. I know what you're talking about, regardless.
I'm British. I want to keep up my sort of standards.
All right.
But there we go. But no, either way. I think they were trying to do some user research there, right? So they were just doing some customer research, but it seems it might stick around. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. If it does go in, the point that I had about that was, I feel like that's a quality control issue, where really there should be one solid mechanism to it that should work really well, right? Because you can't really build games platforming around that if you haven't really got a stable, consistent sort of mechanic system in there, it would be very, very unusual, because it's like what you don't want to do is have some of your level designers playing in speed mode, having some of your level designers playing in platforming mode, and then some areas of the game the player just has to switch things around to play it properly. Otherwise, it's just more difficult to play in certain ways.
Yeah, so it's
a quality control issue.
Yeah, it's similar to what Supersonic 68 said, or Mike, or not Supersonic 68. Sorry, that's oh god, they both have Sonic in their name. It's Sonic Fan 24.
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. So Mike, Sonic Fan 24, was saying he's worried about how broad their design is, which is exactly what you're saying. And to translate, guys, it's basically like if you ported a Mario 64 stage into Sonic Generations, and then you just put a gold ring at the end and went, this will be fun. It won't be. It might be fun to walk around in it because it's like, wow, I'm in the wrong stage. But like, we clearly want a stage that's designed for a certain skill set. And so the sliders, I'm anticipating they only change very little. So it's not going to like mess up any of their design elements. And honestly, the level of automation we've already seen, I fully expect it to lean more on spectacle rather than like player input. It seems like this is a lot of spectacle, which is fine if there's enough content in it and I can be immersed into the world with polished animations. Spectacle can carry an experience. There's games that are literally a movie where you just decide some things. Like, spectacle isn't bad, but again, that's why it falls to the animation so much, because they're clearly putting so many of their resources into the visuals. And so if that's the case, it just becomes really obvious when their world, they clearly have made their world top priority. It's got to look realistic to the point where it supersedes their ability to process the graphics. There's a lot of pop in, but no, it has to look photorealistic. So that's clearly top priority. So it becomes confusing when the animations aren't. So the hope is that they replace them, and Nimso is and every other person, Mike and Supersonic 68, are accurate. And they can just simply switch those animations, and then by the end, we'll have something that is immersive, maybe not intensely relying on player input, and doesn't have the momentum we were looking for. But I can still be excited and happy about just the spectacle elements, just the story, and the open world zone. Sorry, the open world zone thing is selling me a little bit. Like, that is something that Sonic has never tried, right? It is selling me more than Forces did.
I had a little point on that one.
Sure.
I've been thinking about it.
Sure.
And I feel like maybe there's an element, and I've had this problem myself. I was speaking to my colleague that I work with primarily in our current project today, and he kind of agreed as well, which was that I think there's a level of blindsiding here where you've built something and you think it might be more innovative than it actually is. Because what I listen to, I don't know if we're coming back to the sort of structure of the gameplay, and if you want to forward it to later, or if I should just mention it now.
You might as well. It's very unstructured, you know, it's all good.
No problem then. So what it is I watched one of the people's reviews who had played the game, and they kind of gave a breakdown of how this sort of level structure stuff works, where you've got the open zone areas, and in the open zone you're collecting the cogs or the gears, and then those gears unlock what they called the sort of
cyberspace,
those pillars,
right?
But I was thinking of the word for the actual statues themselves. They're not statues though. They're those kind of throne shaped
shrines.
Things.
Yeah, I don't think there's an official name.
Shrines.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we'll go with shrines.
Sure.
So yeah, you collect the gears and cogs in the open zone. You bring them to the shrines, and that unlocks the portal. You enter that. You go into the cyberspace level, and within the cyberspace level, you are looking to collect a key or keys, maybe multiple in the level, and those unlock areas in the open zone level. Okay, so now let me give you a breakdown of that by just changing the names. So you're in the open world area and you collect jiggies And those jiggies are put into nice jigsaw puzzles, which open up the level entrances. And inside the levels, you collect notes, which unlock the areas in the open world. I think you know what I'm talking about, right?
So I don't know the specific reference, but I had a feeling where you were going very early on. So you're basically saying there's a lot of platformers who have done the like collect the thing, open the portal, play the level, opens more stuff kind of format, right?
Yeah, but I think it's like primarily the first one that came to mind for me, and it's a super popular name, Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah,
right? Which
okay,
is where
that's what I thought you were referring to. I was very afraid of embarrassing myself.
Yeah, I thought so, but
Okay.
like I knew you would know it, right? Which is you collect those the jiggies, and the thing is with Banjo-Kazooie was that it has a level of not synchronizing, symbioticness between the levels and the hub world. I think what they're going for here, which is what they're trying to say, that's the innovative part, right? Where it's completely symbiotic. There are things going on in the open world that affect the insides of the levels as if they're the same world. And then when you're inside the levels, you do things in there. Either you collect notes, which unlock doors, or you even you stamp down on the Gruntilda panels, and they unlock things in the open world as well. There's a complete symbiotic nature between the two, where it just feels like you're always in the same world, right? And they did it absolutely excellently in that game. And it also has enemies in the open world, in the open hub zones. It's exactly the same thing. Right? What they were trying to say with Sonic, I think, is that the difference here is you've got your open world plays like a level, where you've got enemies, you've got bosses. But again, that's exactly what Banjo-Kazooie kind of did, right? And it did it really, really well. And I think, in a way, it kind of did it a little bit more symbiotically than Sonic Frontiers does it, because and this is something I want everyone to sort of get a little bit of imagination for, which is imagine just in Banjo-Kazooie is a good example, but I do this with Sonic Frontiers. Imagine an area where it's just a random piece of rock there just in the middle of nowhere, but it turns out after you collect some things that is actually an opening to another area, right? Which is of course the cyberspace areas. There's a level of real like excitement to that. And I think Banjo-Kazooie did it better because those level entrances don't all look the same. Frontiers, they all seem to look the same. They're all the same shrine, right? And you see it in the current trailer, in the newest trailer, where there's a shrine on one of those floating platforms. There's a shrine in the middle of the rocks where Sonic was running around and springing over the water. And it's the same shrine everywhere you go. So you already know it's a level entrance. Whereas with Banjo-Kazooie, you'd enter an area and there's some weird looking door. You don't know if that's just a small room in the open world or if it's another level. Sometimes you'll just see a completely ambiguous looking thing. It's just like a regular static piece of geometry. And then when you unlock the level, it adds the signboard and opens a door that you couldn't see. And it just becomes a level.
It's very surprising that way.
There's so much more excitement to that. It's amazing, the feeling of unlocking something you didn't even know was there, but it's right in front of your face.
Right, so okay.
And I think that's what they were trying to go for.
Well, I don't know if that's what they were going for Frontiers, like that specific feeling, because if they were going for that feeling, they would have totally done that. I think it's very like dependent on the narrative. Like it's a missed opportunity for sure, and I think we're getting a little bit in the territory of what they could have done, which is probably a sign that we should move on to the questions. So we will right after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think we'll really know why it's like that. I think it's like that because one, they wanted to reuse assets, but two, they also, it's tied to the story, right? This cyberspace world seems like it's very separate. It's like a digital world or something. So yeah, what you were saying is definitely a missed opportunity. It would have felt more satisfying to unlock levels that way, for sure. Like that is, I feel like we could say that's objective. Like that would be really cool. And maybe if they do a sequel to this, they did say they want to set the groundwork for the future. That is one of those things, along with momentum and a more stylized environment. It can still look photorealistic, but if it's more designed with, you know, things that are fun for Sonic to move around on, those are the kind of things I would like in the future. included with what you just said, which is great because I will make a follow-up series talking with professionals about what to expect for the future so that we can take this conversation and move it forward. But speaking of moving this conversation forward, we got 2 questions for you, Nimsoni, and then we'll move right on to Leanna and learn a little bit about environment design and game dev. Okay, so the first question, not exactly a question, but I think we can turn it into one. Platinum G donates $5, thank you so much, and says, I don't think the animations will ever look good because they're using the stiff forces model. So the way to turn that into a question is, because I have a feeling that that's not entirely true. I don't think the model, oh my God, my arm just disconnected from my holder. All right, not my mic arm, not my real arm. Okay, so the, yeah, I don't think the model, like a model can't be stiff. It's about the rig, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of people have focused a little bit on the length of Sonic's spines or quills, whichever word is the most accurate. And that's been a bit of a contentious issue as well. But I think the animations here could just be better, right? From my point of view, and I've done plenty of animation in my own time, including entire like platforming character animation as well. Like I've done this stuff. And I think it could just be, there's definitely a polish level that is missing here.
But
with a lot of these things.
But it's not the model, right?
It's not the model. It's not the model. I mean, every now and then you could have improvements in your model to allow you to do a little bit more on the animation, right? For example, the original Sonic maybe didn't have bones for his actual spines, for his quills, and so they couldn't flex separately to the head's rotation. But ever since, I'm pretty sure, Sonic Adventure 2 or even Sonic Adventure 1, they definitely could flex. So the animators have the tool there, right? The rig is already set up, the model's there. Even if they were using the same character model, they could re-rig it if they wanted more animation fluidity. Right? And the animators would usually request that as well. They'd be like, okay, well, can we have the rig have these bones, these things that we want to be able to rotate and move a little bit more, because we've got some ideas for making it really look a little bit unique compared to previous games. There's also the other element of, did they also just take the animation straight from previous games? Usually from what I've seen in AAA, I would expect that they do that at first, and those are the preliminary animations, and then they do the polished versions. And polished versions may be starting with the same animation if they want the same style but high quality, or they may completely redo them. I know I've heard many times in the past that with the Mario games, the quality control is very, very strict, and what they do is, if an animation isn't really up to scratch, the boss will probably tell you just redo it completely, right? So with Mario, I think they've got an extremely strict process. With Sonic, I feel like there's a little bit less quality control. Even compared to projects that I've dealt with at Ubi, I think there's a lot less quality control, which is sort of strictly managing whether you're allowed to put that in a build, right? Because there are certain things, and again, I don't want to go heavily into processes because I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about in terms of processes, but what I would expect them to have is a process in place that says, this animation is not good enough to show at all, it won't go into the build. Right? So this is going into the final, the current version of the game. So it would just purely be local on your computer, the person who's animating it. It wouldn't have made it to a build where other people can even play it within the team. Right? So that's what I mean by there's a quality control difference in the way that they manage that. But yeah, I think that's something. I don't believe that they have trouble with making the animations look much better. I think they can look a lot better than they currently are, because there's definitely a lot of rigidity to his movements, especially in certain actions. And the rail grinding has been a very obvious one from the very beginning, where the animations are very, very stiff.
And this isn't even like targeting the animators that animated the animations we're talking about, because I think it's pretty clear after multiple discussions with other people, game devs and not, that like we're really specifically talking about the people in charge, because it's the polishing issue. It's like somebody is not saying this needs to be better. This is not going into the build. We need to take it further. So at some point, they've decided it's not worth it and that we don't care about it, I suppose. But we gotta show that we care.
I think there's an element of that. But again, it's like sometimes you kind of control it yourself as well. Maybe as an animator you would say, I don't like that one, I want to redo that one. So you're not treating to yourself, but telling management, maybe whoever's saying, okay, this is the current build, you might want to say, okay, I might want to change that. Now, we don't know whether it's that or if they're just not allowed to do so. I have a feeling usually I would expect that if you've got animators on there, they can do a very, very good job of animation. So they've put some preliminary in, and maybe there's now time is running out. You might not be allowed to change things, and being allowed to change things is a heavy part of all of this. It's sort of this is what I was talking originally about. The mechanics and stuff won't change because even if you could do it in a week, it has such an impact that you won't be allowed to change it, right?
Yep.
I've experienced that myself. So yeah, with animations, again, it depends. If there's no impact, if there's very little impact, I would expect there to be a little bit more relaxed nature of being able to make modifications there. And really, I'm just hoping that the plan is to make modifications there. It's sort of, they are good enough, but they don't look AAA quality, polished, final flagship, newest next gen Sonic game.
And that's what we need so bad. Like, the context is why I feel like we need those animations fixed, because like Forces had unfinished animations that took me out of it, and it was also a really shallow experience. And I really think this game is pivotal in the timeline of Sonic because of the movie and Mania. There's a lot of eyes on this game, and if they can change these animations, I really think it will set it apart from Forces, and we will be able to move on. Even if you liked Forces, that's fine, but it was clearly at a different level of quality than what I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog, that launched on the Sega Genesis and became a global icon. I just think the bar needs to be a lot higher than that. And so when I see animations at the same level as Forces, especially considering the context of Sonic's growth in the recent years, and I know the money that Sega's pocketing, I'm saying, hey guys, I think we can ask for one thing, just one very strategic request. Now, if it's that they simply cannot change the animations, I think we can at least get an answer. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, that can't happen. Great. All right, one more question, Nimsoni, and then we'll switch to Leanna. It's like you're heading out. You're leaving us. You're saying goodbye.
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
I'm on my way out.
He's on his way out. All right. This last question is from Yanni. Donates $10. Thank you so much. Do you think they will change his model to match the CG cutscene model? His current model looks dull in comparison to his Unleashed model. Just my opinion.
Oh, I think his model is. I think that's the choice they've gone with. Right?
Yep.
I don't know, as I feel like it's now what you wouldn't do unless they've already got a model planned. You wouldn't want to at this stage be fiddling around with changing the model. That it's like, okay, well, there are animations that are based on that look great on this model, right? Or whether they look great to us, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that those are the current state of the game, right? And we're very close to release. So would you want to change the model and then go through everything, testing, making sure that your character model looks right in terms of its animations? I don't know. Do they have the game testers for it? Maybe, maybe not. It's just, it has such a major impact because it's not as simple as just swap it out, right? Because you can do that. You can swap it out and you will get camera 4 is what I wanted. There we go. So yeah, you can do that. You can just swap it out and it'll work. But will it have the same look to it in terms of the animations? the animations may look different, like they've been done differently, if that happens. So I don't know. It's a scary one, that.
Do you see it as an inconsistency, like the pre-rendered cutscenes that we see for promotional material and then the in-game model? Do you see it as an inconsistency or not a big deal?
To me, it's not a big deal, but I think there's a lot of. So I'm not very picky when it comes to Sonic's model.
Right.
I don't really. Yeah, I've never been picky. I kind of like the constant change of style. I don't mind that. I really
like that too.
love all the sort of unique styles that you see in fan games as well. I would really love for them to try something unique.
Me too. So that's actually my answer to that question is, so I'm trying to think like 5 steps ahead every single time we send a message to Sega, because Sega, like, it's been proven Sega's literally listening to us, so I do think we have a responsibility. And so whether you like the Forces model or not, when we say, go back to the Unleashed model, that the bigger picture of that message is that, don't change the model. Don't experiment with Sonic's design. That is a horrible message to send to any artist. That's literally saying, please do not be creative. Wow, do you want 7 more Green Hills in the next 7 games? Sorry, but that's how this works, guys. If you're telling them to reuse an asset, they're gonna reuse as many assets as they possibly can, and you know they will, because they're already doing it. So let's try to focus on the animations, because that's something that applies to every game, every style, no matter what, right? If we say the bar for animation quality needs to be higher, that covers our bases for whatever creative game they're going to make in the future and sets the expectation higher moving forward, as opposed to going, hey, let's go back to the Unleashed model. No, just say, I don't like the Forces model. I would like something new. The main takeaway is, I think his quills should be a little bit longer. But going back to a previous iteration design might re-implement stuff you didn't know you didn't like. Like, for example, I actually kind of like the face on the Forces model, how he can get really, like, a really intense furrowed brow. That background is sick. Why didn't you start with that one? That is awesome. Okay. But yeah, the furrowed brow.
It's a leftover resort now. I've traveled from Green Hill Zone, because you were saying everyone's sick and tired of Green Hill Zone, and I just forced them to watch 2 versions of it. So yeah, and now we're off to Station Square.
Yeah, but it makes sense in the context for you. It's really cool because you put these together yourselves. When it's Sega using the assets over and over again. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's my whole thing about the Unleashed model. You can like it more. I'm not saying you can't. Again, we just have to be really clear with our feedback and think ahead, because like we all have this responsibility. And the only way I can feel like I'm helping and using Tales Channel as a platform to help and not wasting your time is doing this. So take it or leave it. I'm not telling you, I'm not trying to like control you or anything. One other question came in, $5 donation by Steven or 7. Thank you so much. What do you think was the last time Sega shipped a finished Sonic Team game, if any? I asked this out of concern and not shade. So
this is an unusual one.
This might be tricky for you, Nimso, because it seems like you haven't followed every single game really closely.
Well, I don't follow them closely. I keep a watch of what's the current, right? I think, what was the question exactly? So the question is, do you really think that the current games that have been shipped are truly full games, unique full game?
The last one, it was the question was, when do you think was the last time Sega shipped a full finished Sonic Team game? So what you would consider finished?
They're all finished to me.
Yeah,
right?
because the devs said so. Out of respect for them, it's finished, right?
No, but that's the thing. That it is really the devs said so, right? Now, obviously, there's the very clear-cut games where they were not finished, right? Which is Boom or 6. Very, very clear. Rushed it right at the end there, or maybe for the last year, and it really damaged a lot of elements to the games. I don't know how much of Boom would have been better, but 06 very clearly, when you look at Project 06, for example, you can see that had it not been rushed, my goodness, that would have changed history, right? Because that would have been the new pathway for Sonic. So I think if it wasn't for the rushing there, it really would have changed. We wouldn't even be with the same versions of games right now. I don't think the boost formula would be as prevalent. But would I say that the others haven't been finished? Do I think so? Look at Generations and say, yeah, that's definitely a very finished, very polished game. I would look at Forces and say it's a very finished, high quality product, but maybe there are elements where you feel like it's a step down sometimes from Generations. That's purely design choices. It's not that they were unfinished.
I mean, I would say that so I'm not a game dev, so I'm interested in what you say to this. I feel like the animations were unfinished. He didn't have idle animations.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have any idle animations. Is that fair to say that the animations are unfinished in Forces?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I feel like maybe there's a rush involved again.
You can't say that it was a design choice to have Sonic not blink ever. You know what I mean?
You never know. Maybe they were forgotten. These are forgotten things. I don't know. Again, it's like we're also used to games being updated after release, right?
Yeah, right.
So there are certain things where a lot of, especially in the modern day, you will design an idea, you kind of don't implement it perfectly, and then you update the game later. And there's one thing that I really kind of appreciate about the Sonic side of things is that they're not doing that. And that's a very weird thing to say, because maybe the games would have been better by now if they did do that. But I really don't want them to move that way, right? I don't want them to move to the way of, we'll do it really quickly and definitely not finish it by design, right? By choice, we just won't even bother, and then we can update it later. I don't want that. Like, that's what I definitely don't want. Was the game finished? I think when you've finished everything except for the idle animations, maybe it was just a low priority thing and they were running out of time. So would you call that unfinished? I don't know. It's kind of up to you whether
Are you happy with unpolished?
I would say unpolished.
Okay.
Because idle animations and blinking and stuff like that,
it's polished.
Really, I feel like they should be in certain other animations as well, especially blinking. But at the same time, yeah, naturally what I do is animate it as a little separate piece, so it's always running, and that's going on with Tubby in the background. It's going on with me actually in the foreground here.
Oh, I see all those blinks. Oh yeah, you're blinking.
So that's just its own little animation that's always running. So even when I switch to an animation like this, so these are actual animations running while still having the tracking. The blink animation is separate, right? It's just running constantly by itself. So that's the weird thing. I mean, it's technically polished, but at the same time, some of the animations may also contain blinks. And I feel like the polish would be the thing that runs by itself. But it's definitely an unpolished thing. If they don't have really nice looking idle animations, that's unpolished.
Okay.
But is it unfinished? I don't think so. I think the game plays and functions as intended.
So that's actually, I think this is actually more important than we even realize, because we're learning better vocabulary. And again, it's really important to be specific. And guys, yes, it may feel like we're very incrementally getting to Sonic games that we want, but I did really feel like, even though I didn't like Forces, they did show how much they were listening after games like Lost World and stuff like that. It was a huge shift from Lost World to Forces. And it felt like they were listening, and that's why the marketing felt like it was misleading, because the package that I eventually got, being the game, was what I felt like was shallow and not where Sonic needed to be. Especially releasing alongside Mania, it just was kind of embarrassing to have the main title kind of look that way in comparison. And Frontiers, like Forces at the time, Frontiers does really feel like they were listening in a lot of ways, not in the momentum area or the pinball physics or whatever you want to say, slope physics. Not in the slope physics area, but in a lot of other ways, like the story and the more realistic environments, which is something that people really liked. We saw the rise in popularity of 06 with things like Project 06, and there's a huge community kind of snowballing with games like that. And the originally coined Dark Era, that fan base is getting stronger, and it feels like Frontiers is kind of satiating that crowd in a really wholesome, nice way. So I'm very happy for that crowd to get a game that feels like it's story focused, realistic, taking Sonic seriously. And Azuka literally saying stuff like, we chose a realistic environment because we want Sonic to be taken seriously in this environment. And sure, it's jarring, but hey, I admire the confidence. I admire them aiming for that once again. So that's really exciting. Those are the good things. I just want I want to raise the bar for animations so that it can line up with that goal and do the whole community a service, because I feel like what we really want is a game that we're not embarrassed by. Honestly, like, we want a game to come out and really just be able to feel proud. You know, the movie came out, we felt proud. The second movie came out, we feel pretty proud, most of us. And we want a game that makes us feel proud. The comics make me feel proud. IDW Sonic is going really great, in my opinion. So yeah, I think this is great.
I would love to get to that point eventually. Unfortunately, I've only read the earliest parts of IDW. I finished through the whole Archie comic series. I've read that through at least 3 times now, fully, because I'm a maniac.
Well, if you're really attached to Archie, I mean, IDW is completely different. So if you, I know, but I still really like the drawing. The drawings are great. Yeah.
The building a new universe, I'm fine with that. I'm happy. I'll check it out. Yeah,
I mean, if you were ever, I mean, I'm kind of part of that era where I really liked the stories in the games. Not so much like the stories themselves, but I really liked the characterizations. I don't know, the impact that Sonic as a character had on the other characters like Tails and Knuckles. I just really have always liked those kind of role model characters. So it struck me as a kid. Simple stories or not, I think what was missing from like games like Colors and Lost World is a really clear moral or lesson that makes the game feel wholesome and really like pure from like an innocent place. Whereas Lost World and Colors just kind of felt like they wanted to be a slapstick comedy cartoon that entertained a child throughout the entire gameplay experience without there being any kind of like core or lesson or something that kind of all the characters have to grapple with, like as a mental thing to grapple with, and then come out of it with some sort of lesson. There's no payoff. Okay. So you and I, it seems like we could talk for like 2 hours. So I think I'm going to force gear shift to environmental design with Leanna. So yeah, thank you so much, Nimsoni. Everyone say bye for now to Nimsoni. Thank you so much for being on. We might have you on at the end for another goodbye, so don't go anywhere. Or if you have to go, then please do go. Just let me know so I can say goodbye.
Oh, no,
again.
I'm free forever. I'm free forever.
Free forever.
So all I ever do is sit at this desk and I turn 90 degrees to my right when I'm going to work, and then I turn 90 degrees to my left when I carry on out. Yeah.
Oh, so that's it. You work from home then?
Right now, for the majority of the time. Yeah. So we'll be doing some. I still go in office every now and then. There's a structure coming in soon, but that's how it is. It's pretty great actually.
It's normally like that for me. It's normally like that for me, but summer camp started. Being a teacher, you can't really remote summer camp isn't really enticing for parents, but I teach video editing, and so sometimes I can work from home when I'm like doing planning stuff. But when my class starts, I gotta get in there. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, Nimsoni. It was really nice meeting you. I'm sure we'll talk more in the future about this stuff, because this was incredibly interesting and informative. Thanks so much again.
No problem. Yeah, if you come back later on and we just between the 3 of us to chat, that's fine. But I'll be watching through for the rest of the stream.
Sweet. All right. So I'll talk to you later. I don't know if Leanna still. I don't know if she picked up.
Yeah, I think disconnected possibly.
I might give the whole call a ring again just to ping her again. Let's see. Oh, that's not how it works. Okay, let me just add.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I could disconnect. Oh, it seems to have added.
I'm here.
Oh,
I promise I'm here.
Leanna, hello. I can't see your icon, but I hear your voice, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Sweet. Okay. Let me get your name on screen because I forgot to do that last stream. So this is Mixed Media 945. 945 people took your name. How does it feel?
That's actually a really old holdover from my super old Sonic username. But yeah, no, it's sad. There's 945 of me. I want to have the base mixed media, but I can't. Somebody else has it. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad life.
So this is the account. Is you had an earlier account before this, or no? This is the earliest account?
No, I had an earlier account before this.
You're not going to disclose that one?
I remember
you under a different name.
All of it is super mega deleted.
Good.
But
See, the only difference between...
let's just say the precursor to it was Shadow Girl. So I was in my era. Let's just say that I was in my own little world.
Yeah, that's the username I remember, and I remember I'm glad you changed your name to Mixed Media because I remember you a lot more because there's just too many Shadow Girls.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You are now unique.
There's no offense to Shadow Girls, mad respect. I appreciate the grind. You're really doing Shadow's work.
I mean, yeah, you know, Shadow's been coming under fire recently in the IDW comics. I'm sure.
I'm right there with them. I understand the criticism, but I also respect like the Sega mandates. There's not a lot the writers unfortunately can do if Sega tells them no, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm sure an IDW issue will come out soon where we'll need you, Stat, to talk about Shadow. We'll have a Shadow emergency. I'll be like, Leanna, we need Leanna on here. We have a Shadow emergency.
We need the Shadow historian. Everybody, hurry up.
We need somebody like that. So you know what? You are now the Shadow. You are now the Shadow expert. I will have you on when professionals talk about Shadow. Okay, let's get into forces. Or forces?
Yeah.
I did it again. Frontiers.
Frontiers.
Okay, Frontiers. So, general thoughts so far, because we actually haven't talked to you at all so far, Leanna. So, just general thoughts.
Oh man, it's been an absolute roller coaster. I went from being excited to being really disappointed. I think I've really gone through the fandom, the up and down, like the absolute hill. Like I feel like you could map the excitement and positive to negative like on an actual graph with the fandom. It's been wild. I think I'm sitting where I'm at now. I think I am sitting in a hesitantly positive position. I think a lot of my Sonic fan brain kind of competes with my game dev brain, and I think I give Sonic a lot of I give him a lot of like I'm lax with Sonic. I feel like in a lot of ways I wouldn't be with another series or another IP because he is very important to me and like my life and that kind of thing. But I'm positive. I'm hesitantly positive.
Yeah, because nobody wants Sonic to fail, and like I would describe it exactly the same way for myself personally. And because Sonic matters so much to me, I just don't want. This is a very sensitive thing, right? Because when you start to criticize something, people think. Like, even when initially Sam and I were not so happy, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I didn't comb through Sam's videos word for word and break it down, because honestly, we talk to each other, so I can just ask him what his opinion is. So it may be that he said something and worded something in a way that didn't quite sound right to people, but it seemed like he got a lot of flack for simply being negative towards it. Now again, in my conversations with him,
yeah, I feel bad for Sam. I feel like there might be like a reputation for him to continually be positive or something. I'm not super sure. I've been following Sam for probably about 2 years now, and like generally he's a very positive person, so maybe his fan base or the Sonic fandom as a whole wasn't ready for that from him. But I think everything he said was extremely reasonable. Like exceedingly reasonable.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason I bring it up is because it's interesting how the community treats content creators and when in a news cycle. I think they're looking for somebody that echoes how they feel, and when they don't get that, they no longer see the value in the content creator because they're no longer on their team. Right. So they're looking
the echo chamber is real for sure.
Yeah, and I think people, that's why people get so mad at like Premi de Remy or Sam, because really Sam's done nothing. He shared his opinion. He should be allowed to do that. Everyone is able to do that, of course, to an extent. You know, freedom of speech can only go so far. But
Of course.
more often than not, you just express your opinion, and that's fine. Sam has every right to do that, but the reason it becomes frustrating for people is because that's literally how they view it. It's like, oh, Sam gets views, and he's saying what I think. We're winning. Like, I'm winning. And that is
it's not a
awful.
sports game. It's not, you're not picking sides. I think the internet and Twitter especially, nuance is lost. There's always a middle ground. There's always gray area, and like that happens with the most serious stuff and stuff just as silly as like as Sonic.
Yeah, and so I think I just wanted to, I don't know, I've been kind of chewing on that. So that was really for me, guys. So thanks for bearing with me. But let's get into what I'm really curious about talking to you specifically about, Leanna, which is we're looking at the Switch port right now. So I don't know if in your experience you've ever had to like Nimsoni was saying, have to take something that was for like a AAA hardware and then port it to mobile. Have you ever had to do anything like that with your environments?
So I haven't had to directly per se, but I have been on projects in the past where stuff has been built for PC or for next gen consoles, as it's typically referred to, that kind of thing. And like there has been a Switch port planned. But in my experience, what happened with that, it was a very specific project with very specific needs. And we actually ended up, I believe, hiring like a outside company to come in. That's what they do, and that's what they specialize in, is Switch ports and Switch games. And so they would take what we would have, and then they would handle a lot of that. And of course, like anything they would need from the engineering team and the programmers and designers and such, files and like specifications of what things need to be for the game to be the same, quote unquote, they would get that and that assistance and that help, and there would be collaboration. But like my experience is like there was an outside company that did that, or like a Switch port comes later because it just takes more time in the oven. Because Nimsoni's completely right, you are essentially developing for a phone when you make stuff for Switch, because Switch hardware quite literally runs off of like a modified Android software, I believe.
Exposed.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like it's based off of like a specific NVIDIA model. I don't remember the exact specifics. I'm sure it's well documented on the internet somewhere. But like, yeah, so like stuff is, yeah. I see Nimsoni in the chat, but in our Discord, it's the Tigra. Yeah. So yeah, it's Switch is a very different beast when it comes to developing.
So I have actually, I'm putting something together now. So I'm not expecting you in any way to have like a final answer. This is just something I'm trying to figure out here. But so I remember on Sonic Force's Steam page, and I meant to say Forces, by the way. I'll clarify that. On Sonic Force's Steam page, Sega Hardlight is credited. They're a mobile developer. Do you think that it's very possible that Hardlight was the very team that was commissioned to handle the Switch port? Do you think that's like a realistic theory?
I think that's totally realistic. Whether or not that's actually what happened, I have no idea. But if they have a mobile team I always forget Hardlight like exists, and that's at Sega's disposal. Yeah. It's very realistic because most studios are not working on one project at one time. Usually it's typically 2 or 3 depending on studio size. Obviously indies are in their own space, of course, but even then you might be conjuring new ideas, thinking of things, writing things down for the future. But like I know AAA games typically will work on a standard of 2, possibly 3 games at a time. And that's where I came from before. I was at Vicarious Visions and Blizzard, and then more recently I've been at Steelwool, which is much smaller in size.
That is a massive flex, guys. If you don't know, look those up right now and come back and then post the shocked emoji, because that is the appropriate reaction. Your resume is incredibly impressive, and I'm surprised this is the only time you and I are talking about game dev stuff. Like I'm very excited. I don't even know what question to ask you, so I'll just go to the first one that I can think of.
Okay.
But I don't exactly know how to word it. It's like, what do you think the logic is, or why do they keep opting and I know I kind of talked about this before, but why do you think they're opting for a photorealistic approach when, like in our last discussion with Supersonic 68, we were talking about how if this world looked less realistic, we would be able to justify making things slopey, right? With slopes and not exactly classic Sonic. I know people don't want that aesthetic, right? What I'm just imagining is more of like a skate park kind of geometry.
Yeah.
And if we went for something less, literally like realistic greenery, we could get something that works for Sonic's kit better. So I just wonder what in the development team leads them to a choice that actually, why do they prioritize cinematics over things that would benefit their game? You know, does that ever come into play with your team in discussions?
So, art, like style, like art style as a whole is chosen for a reason. I see, that's the thing, is like their reason could be anything. The thing that I have been assuming is that, and granted, I think this is me also justifying choices that might not actually have been made. I'm not super sure. This is me reaching. I'll put that out there. It's like, I think with them dropping Sonic into a new world, kind of isekaiing him, if you will, if you're an anime fan, I'm wondering if the art direction was chosen purposefully on the Starfall Islands, or at least the specific island that we're on, to better sell that Sonic doesn't belong here and this is like foreign to him, that is different. Whether, I don't know if that's the actual reason, of course, but I think in my heart of hearts, I would love that to be the reason, because it's pretty much it's like the main one I could think of that would make the most sense to me if I was a fly on the wall in the room, right?
Well, I mean, I think you're not just conjuring that up from nothing, too. I think it's worth stating that that's literally something Azuka said in terms of their intention, right? Not in the context of designing the world like this, but he said that they're going for a mysterious vibe. I think it was in the context of the music, right? Like an unfamiliar. Right. And the music, they talk about the music in the same way, right? It's not your typical high energy, upbeat soundtrack. Right. And so it's very possible.
Although I will say, the song that they put over the Switch trailer, that was an absolute banger.
I wish I could
so
hear
excited.
It. Yeah.
It's so hard to hear with the audio going on with the narration.
Dude. Yeah.
But like, I think it's gonna be a good soundtrack. I have faith.
I have faith in the soundtrack and the story. I absolutely do. I really do. Because what I think, similar, very loosely similar to what Nimsoni was saying, but that really satisfying thing in Banjo-Kazooie that Nimsoni described about like finding something you didn't know was there and unlocking it that way. You didn't even know it was unlockable, and then wow, what I did is that much more special because I had no idea it was going to give me that. I think the contrast in the music will be similar in that if the world music is very simple and like relaxing, but if the battle music goes as hard as it seemingly was in the Nintendo Direct trailer, then that is going to leave like a strong impact, as opposed to something like Sonic Adventure 2, where you really can only appreciate the soundtrack when you play the story because the genres are shifting.
Right.
But I'll expose myself when I go back and play. Sorry, I ain't going into the Rouge levels. It's not happening. So it's all rock, and I don't appreciate it as much. I gotta be honest.
Super fair. I'm an SA2 fan, ride or die for forever.
SA1 is a little bit better, but SA2 I really like. But the SA2's got the better story. I get it. Like,
yeah. I'm a sucker for that. I'm an absolute sucker for that. And then
we established the Shadow Girl. Like, you don't need to explain it.
I don't even have to go there.
Shadow in SA2 is based. Like, that's fine. That is like a based opinion. I don't have any problem.
Shadow.
Absolutely. Now, okay, so this is a little tangent. David Humphrey or Jason Griffith?
Why do you have to make me pick between my children like this?
You have to do it. You have to do it. I'm sorry. We literally, the stream will not move on until you pick
Oh my god, they're both so good. I'm so indecisive. I'd be happy with either, but I think I'd be happy with either. I love both of them. Okay. But I think reaction I got specifically from Jason doing his shadow voice in Sonic and Tails are, I think, cemented to me that I have more nostalgic connections to his shadow than I do to Humphrey's, unfortunately.
No,
I love
that's
them both.
fair. Like when the voice actor returns in that way, only then do you know, oh my god, you have been missing.
It was incredible, absolutely incredible. I love that series to death, and also like I was so happy to hear Jason back, and hasn't missed a beat, baby. It's been 10 years. No, it hasn't.
He sounds
He's
better.
doing great.
He
sounds
better,
great.
actually. Like he has improved, which is like I got the same feeling when I heard Ryan Drummond, but I can, if I'm being honest, there's been more time between when he's done that.
Yeah.
So I think he got so much better throughout the run of Sonic and Tails R. And in fact, I'd say by the end of it, it's basically what he did before.
Right.
But I agree with some people where it sounded a little bit off at the start, but I'm not surprised at all. I was still super impressed that he even did a fan project because I never thought that would happen. So I was happy either way. Anyway, tangent aside, moving on.
I could talk for ages. We got to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. We're excited about the story. We're excited about the soundtrack. We talked about the realism, and it could be literally any possible reason as to why they went for realism. But I think what you said is the most likely. And also what you were saying about the realistic environments, that it could be being used to kind of really hit home that this is an unfamiliar world to him. The only thing that goes against that is that Sonic has been in realistic environments before, but like in Unleashed, they're realistic until there's a loop. So what's weird about this is that there's just like floating loops. Like they don't distort the realistic environments, which is what I was kind of talking about when I said skate park geometry. I was like, why can't they just do what they did in Apotos, for example, where that path for no reason just does a loop while he's running down like a community. People
Unleashed
live
really
here.
is like peak. I think Sonic's environment design and environment art basically peaked in Unleashed. It's been like it's the most cohesive to both like the narrative elements, I think design elements. It's beautiful.
I think they found the like perfect, in my opinion, the perfect middle ground between what you would expect in a classic Sonic environment and a modern Sonic environment. The realistic textures and photorealism did come from modern Sonic, and I mean, it in a way, very indirectly, it led to a live-action Sonic movie, because remember, when a live-action Sonic movie was announced, everyone was like, this is not going to work. Sonic is a cartoon character. He's in a cartoony world. And keep in mind, at that time, people were saying that. We were getting games like Colors and Lost World. No surprise, people simplified Sonic to that. That's why I said earlier, it's exciting for Iizuka to be like, we want to take Sonic seriously. And so that's why he's in this environment. So it may look jarring, but I think I'm willing to chalk that up to it looking weird because of what we've seen recently. I'm willing to let this sit. I'm willing to sit on this and see how it ages. Because again, if Sonic is integrated into this world really neatly in the narrative, it's not going to feel disjointed. It just feels disjointed because of what we're used to seeing. Even Iizuka said, like, you don't understand this game yet. Bold claim, but hey, I'm willing to take his word for it.
There's a level of respect I have for him saying that, but I am exceedingly worried how that statement will age.
Yes,
is where I'm at, because I absolutely respect, because the internet has created a very interesting discourse between players and the devs that make the games that the players play, and so I understand him needing to defend him and his team. I absolutely get that, and I respect that, and staying strong in your creative vision. But if the creative vision that we end up getting is not as strong or as consistent as he's making it out to sound, that will age very poorly.
Yeah, especially when you consider stuff that Nimso was saying before with like I don't think it's concerning when he talks about stuff like the reason why he wanted to go with a realistic environment. Like, I think that was pretty sound. It only becomes concerning when we really focus on the point Nimso kind of, pointed out, which is that they talk about this open zone concept like it's never been done before.
Yeah.
But like, I think what they're trying to say is that Sonic's never done this before.
Yeah, no,
And-
I 100% agree.
But
Nimso is incredibly smart, and everything he said, I pretty much agreed with, especially with that sentiment.
Everyone that is here except for me is incredibly smart. That's why we're talking with you guys.
Listen, it's hard to articulate this stuff. There are a lot of jargon and a lot of buzzwords and like stupid stuff that game devs have created in the past 30-40 years of game development. So like, I get it. It's incredible.
It's hard to keep up with. Yeah, like when Nimso was talking to me about the acceleration in Mario, and like he's like, when you push left, you go forward. I'm like, I don't know if when I play the stream back, it's gonna look really funny. I was like trying to like move my fingers. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, no.
I eventually got it though. But yeah,
it's a hard concept to get across, especially if you're not familiar with creating it yourself. It's like why game dev is like very, I would argue, like very difficult to teach. It's like very specific, and I went to a 4-year program, so like I get the growing pains of having to pick up any of the jargon.
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling the burn with the jargon you're talking about in the last couple of videos, but I think that's why I need to make these. I need to make a fool of myself in public. I don't care. I've never cared about making a fool of myself in the past like 15 years I've been on YouTube, so might as well use it to avoid other people that might be, you know, not willing to make a fool of themselves. So I'll ask the stupid questions.
Let's go. Let's go stupid, baby.
Let's do it. Let's get stupid. What's going on with the pop-in? Do you like, is it possible, you think, to make a game that would be eventually ported to mobile software? I never know if it's mobile or mobile software, and realistic, but also Sonic moving through the world really quickly. Like, are they trying to do something impossible?
I don't think it's impossible. I just don't think it'll be pretty.
And so when you say it won't be pretty, like, so in current technology, if you were to try to do that, realistic environment, really fast character, and also just like, this is nature too, so it's meant to be imperfect by nature. Oh, this is a good question. Is natural environments harder to create than industrial, like technology, robotic environments?
It depends on who you would probably ask that question to. Okay. But for me personally, I think like what we would, like, if you went by natural, the phrase that we would probably use typically in the art field of 3D is like organics.
Okay. Makes sense.
And so like organics, like rocks and like those kinds of structures, mountains, anything created by nature that's not man-made, I personally find to be extremely difficult. I am not, because a lot of that stuff. So we're gonna get into some jargon territory.
Okay,
slow me down.
Okay.
Pause me if you need to for me to elaborate. But basically, you have what are considered like hard surface modelers, and that's typically like metals, buildings, possibly cars if you want to go like that far into vehicles. But that's usually a separate job. I'm environment and like props. Hard surface stuff. So it could be like a keyboard, it could be a computer, it could be your desk, it could be your chairs, those kinds of things. And then when you get into organics, you're typically a soft surface or a sculptor, if you will. And that's when you get to sculpting programs, which are like, I would consider more complicated and has a way higher skill ceiling. There are incredibly talented hard surface modelers. I don't want that to get twisted in any way, shape, or form. But like in my experience with what I am good at, I'm better at hard surface modeling rather than sculpting, which is your rocks. Trees are typically made in like a program. Almost every game dev uses like Speed Tree at this point. That's like almost industry standard, which is just a program, like its name, makes trees. It's really good at it. And then you can input like your own like leaf textures and like your own bark textures, but it also has built-in things and you can get your own info and that kind of stuff and plug it in there instead. But
right, and this team would have to make entirely their own unique assets for all of the organics in this world because it's a unique game. They literally, or I guess they could buy asset packs, I guess, and have the rights to those asset packs.
It's like it really depends. I don't know what their cycle's looking like. So like when it comes to AAA game dev, it's not totally uncommon for really large games, especially, to utilize what they call like outsourcing studios. and you outsource some of your art, if not sometimes all of it. So what that basically means is you just like pay another studio. That's all the people there that they do is they model stuff, texture stuff, like pretty much all day. And then you get it back from outsourcing. You make the tweaks in-house that you need to do. And then you in-house place it in your engine, in your game, in your level, in your scene. And that's for a lot of large stuff. So I'm not sure if they're utilizing an outsourcing studio. I have no idea. You can never tell. In my opinion, I don't think you can ever tell if something was outsourced or not, because there's a quality control that they go through.
Right, and it would just be generic credits at the end. Like, it wouldn't specify a separate
It might
team.
say like the studio that it came from, or they might lump them all together and they might just all be like considered to be equal parts. It really depends on credits, or like a messy thing that's like every studio kind of does their own thing. There's not really like a standard for them.
Oh, okay.
So who's to say, basically, at this point.
So Supersonic 68 is making a clarification, and I want to clarify too. I remembered what you said, Supersonic 68. I just wanted to know if you know anything about this angle too. Maybe someone you worked with mentioned something. But organics, when it comes to actually like rendering them, they're Supersonic 68 is saying that like objectively they are harder for graphics engines to like render. I don't know if I'm using the right vocabulary, but
I would say like organics have a tendency to need like more detail in their information. Like, so they might need more polygons to get certain information across. Silhouettes are really important when it comes to 3D models. Like, you want to make sure your silhouette is really clear and your thing that you're making. I'm not sure personally how intensive organics are in comparison to like a hard surface model, but like obviously the terrain needs to be pretty fluid here for Sonic to not hitch up and down a ton. So like that could be more expensive than it might be in a non speed-based platforming game, because they need it to be smoother. More polygons equals more smooth, basically what it boils down, unless they have a tech to leverage that, which by the way he magnetizes to surfaces when he's running off of them, I don't think they do. I think I could confidently say that.
well, there's that one scene in the, I still don't know what's happening in that Nintendo, what is it? Nintendo Direct. The new footage, he just does like a weird trick. We weren't able to really get to the bottom of this weird trick thing he does off the cliff.
Is it when he's like, is he jumping and he does that little flip?
He runs, yeah, okay, so I have it on stream. It's gonna be delayed for you, but
no worries.
He runs off a little ledge, and then he just does his running animation. I guess almost the front flip. Figure
eights in it. Yeah, it's like a. I think I know which one you mean. Yeah, that one. Yeah. I think that's an intentional animation that like I think that is them trying to be like, once you reach a certain angle of a wall, and it knows that you're gonna fly off of it with this is a buzzword, momentum.
Oh god.
That's like them being like, well, Sonic wouldn't be able to just like, he wouldn't just keep running forward. He wouldn't be magnetized to the ground. Gravity is not like perfectly gonna keep you locked.
But my question is, why does that sometimes happen? Because like it's happened in all other footage. He like sticks.
Right. He sticks. I think it could be a tweak. It could be like, hey, we need to polish this thing so it's like you're not sticking to the floor. Because I would agree, that's very jarring, and like very like immersion breaking. It's like it's very, yeah, but I like the flip. I like the idea of the flip. I want to see again. Yeah. I want to see it polished. But I like the idea.
I do. I want to run around like kind of like Tony Hawk and just be Sonic, like just be awesome and just flex.
I want to be just like an absolute like parkour skate maniac.
Right, and I've also always wanted there to be a taunt. Like, I almost wish that instead of doing a trick automatically after a homing attack, there could be a button I could, like, click. So while I'm fighting an enemy, I could be like, hey, and then, like, keep fighting them. Over here.
That'd be really fun. That'd be really cute.
That's literally Sonic. and I've been waiting since like literally SA1. And it just feels like we're losing features. Like, for example, SA1, Sonic will turn his head to look at like flickies he's saving or badniks.
And that's a perfect polish feature. That's like that's a really immersive polish feature that like I quite literally didn't realize until like this year. Until people started pointing it out. And I was like, that's actually insane. That's crazy.
It should happen in a game like this because there is focal points for Sonic and he's in an open world and it will help guide the player to things it can interact with, right?
Right.
And it helps specifically with this type of game. It had no utility in Adventure 1. It was great.
Well, Adventure 1 in a lot of ways was almost like the tech demo for the Dreamcast. So it like makes sense that they were doing everything that they could for their hardware. But yeah, Sonic has lost a lot of polish expectations like that shouldn't be hard to do in a lot of the grand scheme, because I know a lot of people are like, Sonic fans are so whiny and like you guys ask for everything, you get shown one thing and then you're not even happy with it. And I'm like, well, it's hard to be happy when you see other franchises with the same age and the same like gross value in their IP getting far better treatments more consistently with objectively better games.
It got especially worse when like Crash and Spyro were coming back,
right?
And we're just like, what?
And you're like, well, you're like, Crash and Spyro have been dead functionally for years.
Yes.
And then they get made on a whim, and then they're like, oh well, anyone can do it. And Sonic just isn't. There are no excuses anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like before,
it's kind of where
it was
it's
like,
at.
oh, it's Nintendo. Nintendo has all the good IPs, so like that's why Sonic can't keep up. But then Crash and Spyro, and it's like, okay, so then what's the excuse? Like clearly,
it's a management issue. It's an upper echelon management issue for sure. Whether that's it could be any number of, I don't want to like name sections of a company, but like executives, boards, those kinds of things make a lot more decisions in game dev than you might realize as like as a consumer. That's the point. They don't want you to know.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, they also don't want you to know that what you have is like the power you have as a consumer, because that's work. Right. Like literally, if I was at work and somebody asked me to like, hey, can you do this thing that you're like supposed to do? It sucks. Like I'm gonna do everything I can to probably avoid doing that. Totally. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to do it. And that's how they feel too. But like, the only way it actually gets done is if we ask for it. And I just don't get the tendency. This meme, it's from The Simpsons, like a guy jumping in front of somebody. It's like a giant company or whatever. Like, leave the giant corporation alone.
Yeah.
Like
brand loyalty is like a poison, but like I think we've all been we've all done it, you know. It's a learning experience.
Eventually show your loyalty to your brand, to your community, because those are the people that love what you love. The company, they get a paycheck when you buy their thing. They don't need your thank you. The fans that do it for no money, do fan art for no money, and they give you content for nearly for free. Those are the people that get targeted more. They get their art nitpicked because somebody made them look like slightly off model and stylized because they want it to be unique and different than the million other people. Then you get a fan game that uses a classic model as opposed to a modern model, and they decided to change it because their game evolved, because they're not being paid to do it and they can do whatever they want. They get targeted as a classic fan. Bro, you're targeting the wrong people.
Right.
So
100%. And I agree. And also, and it's like another thing, it's like, don't target the devs either. Like, don't at Takashi Iizuka on Twitter, please. Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no way to know for sure whose fault it is, but I think it's a safer assumption to say that there are people in management not doing their job.
And in any game dev horror story that I have been told or have watched videos about or have read up on, 9 times out of 10 it's usually an upper management issue, and where that issue comes, like those issues specifically can vary from money's a big one, to anything to just like weird interpersonal politics. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes with like people's relationships and things, of like so and so up top doesn't like so and so at the bottom. Well, oopsie doopsie, like that's how it goes sometimes. People are people.
I have a few things, and again, I don't work in the industry, so tell me if this happens, but I can just assume or estimate. I'm going to say estimate because I've worked in a creative field, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is any different. And I can find a way to translate it for people who are watching too that have zero experience. Okay, throwback time. Put yourself back in high school, working on a group project.
Yep.
A creative group project where you guys can decide what you want to do and what subject and how you want to cover it. Do you remember that sucking? That's literally most of what you learn when you go to post-secondary education for art school. You figure out how the hell to make that not suck.
Yep.
Now,
100%.
Now imagine, it's the same kind of thing, right? You have something you want to do, and it's personal to you, so it becomes part of you in a way. It's an extension of you because it was your idea. So you bring it up in this high school class, this is what you want to do. Somebody says, that's stupid. All it takes is somebody not knowing how to properly engage with somebody, and there's a whole lot. All you gotta do is go outside to find a couple or be online for literally 2 seconds.
True.
A lot of people who do not know how to socialize in that way, and half of the people that say awful things don't even know they're hurting people's feelings. So I wouldn't think about it too much. But again, these creative fields that Leanna is talking about, all it takes is one person to say something maybe they meant, maybe they didn't. They have the power, and it can cause drama in the group because it's personal ideas being shared, and the people can no longer work because they feel like they're no longer comfortable. It's so easy for a creative project to start slowing to a halt and nothing getting done. It is super important.
And like,
yeah,
there are checks and balances in game dev to try and make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. We have timelines, we have milestones, we have producers whose pretty much entire job is to make sure things are getting done in a manner that is timely. And if it's not getting done in a timely manner, what can we do to help those people get it done? Either that be a new timeline or a new milestone date or getting them help, right? So like there are checks and balances for those kinds of things as well. But like, yeah, there's a lot of like interpersonal politics, and I often joke that it's a miracle any game gets made ever at all, because they're unlike a movie, unlike a TV show maybe. There are a lot more moving parts in game development
because you can interact with it.
Exactly.
It's
and
like
all it takes is one number change in a code value somewhere, and your build doesn't work for a week.
Yep. It's
and that's it.
Only thing I can describe it to is like there's a foundation, like a tower, right? And everything in the tower is holding it up for the most part. There's of course more important bits, but in a game, it's like the foundation, there's no gravity with code, right? The foundation is on all sides of the building, guys. Change any sides, the thing will fall left, right, any direction. There's no gravity in this world.
I mean, yeah, it's that, and I mean, even like an artist can push something incorrectly to the game, and it can break stuff also. And granted, like usually you get on top of those things really quickly. Because the more you let them sit, the worse and worse it'll get. But yeah, game development is hard. And I know a lot of people are like, Sonic Frontiers should be AAA, it should be yada yada yada, but I'm not confident in saying that the team size that they have is AAA sized, or the budget they have is AAA sized. I think it's like a smaller than you might expect team working with less money than they probably should have, and I empathize with that. And if that's the case, I feel bad. I wish Sega would give them what they need, and if that's not the case, I'll eat my words.
There's no way to know. We'll never know, but all we can say is usually artists are not paid enough.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And I think everyone knows that. You can figure that out very quickly.
Game dev in itself has a lot of its own problems, and I'd encourage anyone who's really interested in this kind of stuff to try and follow game devs on Twitter. Not me or anyone specific, just like if you see somebody you like, or you know somebody that's making cool stuff, follow them, see what they're engaging with in the community and how they talk about what they're making or aspects of the industry, because I think it'll enlighten you to a lot of why things become the way they are. You still might not like them, and it still might suck a lot, but it's better to have the framework of understanding why things are the way they are, and then where you can point your energy to give to the right people to make the right changes in the future.
Absolutely, and I'd like to think I'm trying to do that with Tails channel, right? I know that Tails channel is important to a lot of people, and so I try to get people on, like yourself and Nimso, to try my very best to make sure people can feel that way, and using a platform that is that people tend to use for Sonic information. So the hope is that we maybe inspire people to do something similar, engage with game devs more often, have them participate in these discussions more frequently. It's insane how many game devs we have that are Sonic fans as well that are not involved in the conversation. I'm hoping to start a trend. Copy my idea. Copy my idea right now. Bring professionals on your video. I'm begging you. In fact, if you ask any of these people, I can't say they're going to say yes. They might say no, but I'm sure they would appreciate being asked at least, because that is a lot of time to spend into learning a craft, and it is incredibly valuable. And
right, and some devs really want to talk about it, and some devs really don't, because unfortunately, opening the door might lead to interesting people. There was like, oh god, there was like 2 game dev things this week of like God of War devs being sent very inappropriate images, being threatened to find the release date for the new God of War, and then another Monkey Island dev was like, I'm not posting about the game anymore online because I keep getting like death threats, and it's very sad. Be kind to the transparency that you are given. That is what I would say as my words of wisdom. Okay,
since we're talking about this like management thing again, I did have one last thing to say to translate for people who do not have experience with this, and I don't either. But this is what I'm observing through multiple devs talking to me. Imagine there's another scenario for you. What's harder to hide? You know, what's harder to hide? Azuka after a game releases and it's not exactly how he's described it, or some person that chooses not to be credited at all but is calling all the shots. Who has an easier time hiding? The answer is obvious. The person who doesn't even credit themselves. They don't put their name on it. They're just, and they can do that, right? Because you said there is no standard for credits.
And like, I would never say, I've never, as far as I understand, executives don't get listed anyway. So it's like, I don't. And like Azuka's on a topic specifically of Azuka. He is such a scapegoat. I feel bad for that man. I'm regardless of your opinion specifically of Azuka or his design philosophies or how he is quote unquote run Sonic Team, he is a scapegoat. He is absolutely the target on Sega's back, that they point to him and they go, look at that guy. That's the guy. That's the Sonic guy.
And that's
I feel bad for him.
He's one of the few, because he's one of the few original Sonic Team. I mean, he's not the original, but he was in Sonic 3. He's one of the oldest from like the core team. And like when we fall for that obvious bait, guys, all they'll do in response if we hate Azuka is remove him, and the person that's made the shit that you don't like is gonna stay there and probably make even more money. Like, that's an assumption. That last part, they might not get a raise, but I'm saying they can do that.
Yep.
I know there's kids out there, so I'm trying to like, that's why I'm saying it. A lot of you might already know, but again, we're trying to inform, we're trying to pinpoint where your anger should be if you are, or if you're happy, at least you know where to take the discussion in the future. Because there's gonna be people out there trying to tell you you shouldn't be hyped, and that should never be the case. You should know what specifically to be hyped about and what specifically to be a little bit concerned about, because that's literally life. There's a little bit of light, a little bit of dark. I literally 100%. Would not be able to see if it's all darkness. It's literally not how things work. So we've covered a lot of bases, so I would say I would throw it to you if there's anything we haven't covered that you really wanted to. And then if you got nothing, I can just throw it to the chat. So yeah, is there anything that we kind of didn't really cover that you were hoping to cover?
No, I think we nailed it. There are some things in the environment art specifically I'd like to see, like Sonic running, interacting with the grass, but like that's very polished level, surface level stuff, and quite honestly, that's not like an end all be all thing. It's just like what I'm focused on at work all the time is like those kinds of things. It's like literally I get told like the shade of red is too red. Change the shade of red. and that's like my job. So like small stuff like that, like the minutia, the smallest things are important, and I think like some of the stuff like that, interactability in the grass when he walks through it, pushing aside from him would be really nice.
I saw a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I think when he's like walking around the puzzle in the footage I'm looking at right now. Yeah, look at this. Hold on. It's gonna be delayed for you, but... Oh, okay, so some grass kicks up. None of the... Oh, it looks like the plants are trying to move around him, but it kind of looks a little buggy. But yeah, grass kicks up.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so some of the plants are doing... Again, it could be a not finished feature.
Sure.
Where it's just like they took it out for this build specifically, so it would not be broken. And like that's a realistic thing that happens sometimes. It's like, oh, well, we can't update that piece of artwork because if we do, it's not finished yet. That kind of thing. So we'll leave the original iteration of code or original iteration of art as is, to have the stability of the code be the more important thing whenever this build was made. I'm not sure. But yeah, I want small stuff like that. The lighting during the day is a little flat, but again, small stuff they could fix. I want to make sure their optimization is good. It seems like it's running okay on Switch, so maybe they've gotten that pretty well covered. The original thoughts of them not having level of detail or LOD models isn't true. That is, they do have LODs. It's just hard to tell with
what is LODs?
LOD, level of detail. So.
Oh, wait a minute. I do actually remember. I learned that's the low poly models in the distance.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. You passed the test.
Yes.
You didn't know you had a test, but you passed the
test. I did it. I win.
Did it. Yeah, but it's like the further out you go, the lower poly the model gets, basically to save on performance. And they do have LODs in, and it's more noticeable in certain shots than in others. It's probably good that it's not noticeable. That means they did a pretty good job making sure stuff doesn't look too chunky. But they can always there's small optimization things I'm very curious about, but like these aren't public facing, and I will just start to speak a bunch of nonsense to chat. So we could probably move on to questions if chat has any.
Sure, we'll do that right away after I say one thing. All those like quality of life things, like all of those things can be things that could break the game if they tweak them, though, like you said, right?
LODs are, I wouldn't say that they could break stuff, but it's kind of just either the engine auto does it and then you clean them up later, or you make the artists make them themselves and then they plug them in to wherever the engine has them plug it into. It should be like a built-in thing. LODs shouldn't really break anything. Things that could break, possibly things if stuff gets a little messy or people aren't careful, is like if they are optimizing textures or materials, because a big thing with open world games and games in general is draw calls, and all that basically means is an object draws upon multiple points of information, and usually the biggest barrier for draw calls to cause optimization problems, at least with my experience, is textures and materials. Either that means too many textures on one thing, and so that means compacting them into one image or compacting them into one sheet, so that way the engine only has to call upon one or two things rather than like 6.
Right, so one file, but you could just program it to only load one section of that file, so it's one separate texture, right?
It's more like a rock might have 6 materials on it, and that's bad. So you want to make all of those 6 materials maybe onto 2 sheets, 2 materials instead, and that's usually done like by hand by an artist, compounding what they can compound, basically.
Oh, so just more efficient use of space on the textures?
Basically
to get the same look.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. All right.
So it shouldn't visually change a ton. Your goal is not to visually change it as much as possible. Sometimes it has to get a little lower res, the image file itself, but typically like your goal is to make it like just as efficient as possible without really losing much appeal in the visual category.
Now for LODs, are there typically like a bunch of variants that are like significant, they get even more low poly based on their distance? So would you have like 5 variants of like do you know what I mean, of one model?
Yeah. No, 5 is actually like a pretty good number.
Oh, wow.
You have like 5 levels of distance, and then depending on the hardware you're running on, for like the Switch version, you usually start at LOD 0. That's like your highest resolution one. Typically, it might change depending on your engine, but LOD 0 is typically the highest resolution, the most polygons. But let's say Switch might not start at LOD 0. That might be too much for the Switch. So Switch might start at 1 or 2, which is why those LODs are really important for all platforms, because 1 or 2 is less resolution, less polygons.
So is it fair to say that maybe the pop-in issue is fair to say, maybe I clarify this, is it a fair estimation to say that maybe the pop-in might be evidence that they are still juggling porting to the Switch, I guess, is my question. Does that make sense?
Depending on how it is getting done, it is very possible. And it could be also that, like I said, maybe they haven't finished optimizing things yet. Maybe they only have 3 LODs and they actually need 5. And then so you're still pulling from too high res of a model for the engine to stream load in efficiently. And I mean, that could come later, you know? I think that's very reasonable. LODs and like material optimization, stuff like that is super normal to get done in the last couple of months of development.
That's
May I jump in on that moment?
Yeah,
go for it.
So I've been kind of focusing a little bit on the material loading, and I did a little bit of a video on this. But even in sort of the latest footage, you still have the same issue, which led me to believe that they really are kind of struggling on the RAM usage, on just keeping memory. Maybe it's memory loss usage, or maybe they are hitting performance concerns with keeping materials loaded. So when and Rails are a really good example of this, where you might have already noticed this. Every now and then, you'll start seeing there's this sort of a glowing blue effect when an object loads that was completely out of view.
That like
I
cyan.
remember your videos.
So, yes. Oh, right. So you'll have already seen it in my video. But what you'll notice, and it happened in the video that was playing just now on screen, but I think I'm about 30 seconds delayed, so it's not a brilliant place to check. But when Sonic's running and then that bird just flies above him, and in the top left corner you can see the platforms loading one by one as he gets closer. The first one has the blue glow, and then the later ones don't. So they just pop in immediately upon distance. And that's leading me to believe that the material was loading after the object, right? But when you look at the section where he slides down the giant sort of vertical rail, when you're coming down from the tower, there's a boost on there, so one of the rail boosts, where it's glowing blue, it loads onto screen, and then for about 8 frames, it's off screen while Sonic just goes straight to the bottom of the vertical and then tilts forward again. And it's already gone blue again.
Right.
So what's happening is immediately upon going out of view, the material is just being unloaded unless it's on screen somewhere else. And I feel like they are really struggling. So no, it's not occlusion. It's just outside of the view. Right. So it's more just the what's it called? No, it's that rail there, which is on screen again, where it's super delayed. So it's just before when he goes down the vertical rail, and then he turns to the left, and where we originally had that weird sort of left to right jump animation was wrong. That section there, if you step through that, you'll see it immediately, where the blue glow comes back within seconds, within a few frames.
I don't know if I'm at the right
what it led me to believe was maybe they're just really struggling on keeping things in memory, so they're unloading things immediately out of view.
Can you see my screen share? Can you see my screen share, Nimsoni?
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so if I click watch stream,
you should be able to.
Yes, it's loading. It's trying to.
Okay.
Never mind. So that's the same rail. Yeah. So right now you're in the play. There. And just that boost there, did you see it? So if you can step through that, go
I think
back.
I saw it for a second.
And yeah, this boost here.
Oh my god.
Right.
Blink and you miss it.
Step back a few frames so that you go all the way back.
Oh, okay.
As in, so that Sonic goes all the way back up the rail, right? So it's back in view. Okay, so here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
Right, so now it's in view. And as you go forward, you step a few frames. 1, 2, 3, one more. And it's just going, and now it's out of view, right? The next frame. Right, so 1 frame, go and count them. 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, and it's already lost its material.
Oh my.
And
So
now
that's
it's
not
loading
right.
again.
It's
Well,
not.
it's
I mean,
sort of an extreme memory management, right? It's very extreme, is what I feel like it is, but I'm not sure.
So is this maybe evidence that they're having a really hard time getting it to be stable?
I don't know about stability.
I don't know if stable
I
is
think
the
you
right
might have a
word.
better
Stable frame rate is what I'm getting at.
Oh god, optimization is such like a rabbit hole of rabbit holes because
Okay.
it has a lot to do with like CPUs and RAMs and graphics card like memory spaces. And different games will have different struggles in different areas, depending on like what your min spec or your minimum like spec PC is on, which is like the lowest recommended PC that like or thing they're trying to get it on. And like devs very specifically have dev kits, like they have that poopy computer from 10 years ago that they're trying to get it run on. They will get it to run on with like the bare minimum on that thing, and like that's all the further back they'll go. Like that min spec recommendation is there for a reason. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I was short of knowing what's going on. Like I can't say if it's a RAM issue or if it's a graphics issue. But then again, that could come back to the material optimization that I was talking about, with them needing to optimize things and maybe push some things onto the same texture sheets and maybe make some stuff a little lower resolution to prevent stuff like that if the engine is really struggling to get it to be able to stream load everything in consistently. Because I don't think people I know are like, oh, like just make it look intentional, like make the load in look like it's intentional. I'm like, you kind of can't. You're loading stuff in fresh for a reason, and like you can't load something else in addition because that'll just make it worse.
Like loading an effect for the pop-in would just make the pop-in worse, and then the effect probably wouldn't even load.
Probably, or it would load delayed or something. And VFX in general typically are expensive.
There you go.
That's a very general blanket statement, but like typically they're expensive.
Right. No. So I mean that makes it less realistic, especially in the short time we have. So I'd say, because I'm trying to target the middle ground, the realistically hyped crowd, which I think is most of us. We're trying to be critical and hype. So there's a small area, and I think it makes it nice and specific of like, okay, so then how do we be critical, but we want to be realistic, and we want to ask for stuff that's like that they can actually make a big impact, but like isn't gonna like ruin the game and like cause them problems. And it really always comes back to animations.
Yeah, and the dev team, based on the way that Azuka has spoken, is they're already doing late nights. What that means, I'm not sure exactly, but I hope Sonic team isn't crunching their absolute brains out to try and get this out the door, because I think dev health is really important.
Yeah.
And the less Sonic team gets burnt out, the better your Sonic games are going to be long term. The stuff that Azuka did to get Heroes out the door is like, that's like nightmare scenario stuff. Like that's the stuff I hope to never have to experience, and I've been really fortunate to not have to do any kind of like overtime crunch scenarios in my game dev life, but like there's still a lot of time, baby.
The people that disrespect that man don't even know that. Do you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
he lost 22 pounds when making Sonic Heroes, and there was only 2 level designers. It was him and another person, and that other person got deathly ill, had to be gone for a really long time to get medical attention. And so it was just Azuka, and I think like if with the knowledge of that going into the later levels of Sonic Heroes, I think you could probably see it's like it's a man who slept under his office desk trying to get a game out the door. And I'm not to say that like you can't say the Heroes doesn't like that doesn't excuse criticisms you might have about Heroes or what you would love to see from a game like that in the future. No, but it there's a level, again, a nuance, a middle ground that you need to understand. Like Azuka has fucking like literally, sorry, can't swear.
You're fine.
Bled, sweat, and tears into this franchise for a long time. And granted, like Japanese working culture is not something that I'm super familiar with, but I know like very base level, it's pretty aggressive in the way that it treats its working office people. And game dev in general is not a franchise, not an industry known to having the best work-life balances, and a lot of people's passions get used and abused, literally, to used against them in their careers.
That is in all art careers, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, art is one of those things.
They see it as so fun, so I think people perceive it as like, oh, it's payment enough for you to be able to do this, like the privilege to do it. But it's like, bro, do you think I click my heels together to draw your OC?
No.
Like, I didn't design this OC. Like, I'm happy to get the money, but that's why I get the money, because I have to draw something you want. Or like, make something you want. I've got bills to pay.
I got bills just like everyone else has bills. Just because I can make a blue hedgehog kind of fast on paper doesn't mean that like I'm making any more money than you are. Usually it's less.
and we can like, this is another one of those things we can talk about forever. And the sad part is it'll probably fall on deaf ears, because people who belittle art are gonna, I think, continue to do it forever. Because my stance on it, and this is a huge topic that I'm not going to get into, but I think arts education just honestly sucks.
No, I will agree with you, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Frontiers. I literally, my video Sonic Fan Problem goes into that a little bit, so take a look on Tails' channel for more of my stance on that. But it's been out for a while. What's that?
Banger video.
Oh, thank you so much.
Banger title.
I don't know how long it'll take until I can make another video like that, but I'm hoping to do another one. I had a lot of fun with it. All right, so let's answer some questions from the chat. We got 2 more. This can go to both you guys if you're so inclined to answer both. First one is from Makayato. Thank you so much for the $5. He says, "How does one become a game developer? I'm interested in becoming one day."
This is a very good question.
Very open-ended though. So.
I think I'll go first, and then I think I'll let Nimso go, so that way he can say his experience of how he got in. But the way that I got into game dev was like very traditional American college education style. So in high school I was like, I think I want to be a graphic designer, and then I was like, no, just kidding. I found out that I could be a game artist for a living. That sounds sick. And then I went to a college program that was 4 years long. That was exceedingly expensive. It did help me out in getting my career. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of networking connections thanks to said college. But like it's expensive. So it's really a pick and choose your own adventure. Getting into game dev, there's no one way, is what I'll say. But that's what I did.
That applies to a lot of art too. I just have to plug that in just because I've studied like multiple different art forms. So I feel like I'm just going to be the like art ambassador. But like, I'm also an art teacher. So I don't know. I feel like I earned some stripes.
No, you can flex.
Let me flex a little. You know, I got some resume stuff going on. But anyway, okay. So in all art forms, really, you can just teach yourself. You can. It's a lot more difficult because a lot of art, because people see it as like, oh, it's payment enough for you to just do it. That means that it's even more reliant on the connections you have. So the biggest piece of advice I could give you for anything creative, making YouTube videos, visual arts, game design, whatever it is, theater, performance, stand-up comedy, networking. Just be a good person. Focus on looking after yourself, taking care of yourself mentally and physically, because people aren't going to want to collaborate with someone that's not looking after themselves. You need to look after yourself first, because if people just want to be around you, they're going to want to create with you. They're going to trust you if you practice what you preach. You're not a hypocrite throughout your life. It's like we said with art, it's vulnerable. So people need to be able to trust you to work with you. I would have never been able to put on this live stream if I hadn't been doing Tails' channel that way for so long. Because if I just like walked around like, yeah, I'm Tails' channel, everyone shut up because I'm Tails' channel and I tell you what's what, no one would want to come on the live stream. And I wouldn't do anything. There would be zero purpose. It'd be me, Tails' channel, that's all about me. That's not what it is. Now, if you said you were ridiculous, then people would be coming out in droves. Yeah, but that's, I don't think so. Sorry. But anyway. Not to derail you. You were 100% correct. Networking is a huge part of it. Be a good person. I think I mostly want to say that because it also ties into the other stuff we're saying too, is like, it is that massively understated how long of a way just being kind and respectful goes. But you also have to be assertive, and that's something I had to learn. Some people have assertive just when they're born, you know, they're just assertive by default. They know they have that. They know how to ask for what they need, delegate tasks to other people. Those are things I had to learn because I was more on the shy side, had to learn how to socialize. Writing comedy scripts came more naturally to me, but delegating and telling somebody what I need done that could potentially make them upset was harder for me. And that's also something you need to know how to do without making someone feel awful. And that's useful in all creative fields. So we're gonna now take it and shift it back to like game dev specific. Nimso, how did you become a game developer? You still here? Nimso?
Yeah.
Is he actually on the call?
He might. Yeah, he's here. I don't know if he's double muted. He could be double muted.
Oh, you're here. He's typing, talking. Oh, we can't hear you. Okay, interesting.
Aww.
Maybe if I stop my screen share, it'll help. You're not muted. While Nimso gets that figured out, we'll just move on to the next question. Ask Leanna, and then we can bounce back. No problem. I'm sure the mic will just like pop in the middle of the next thing.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question, and we can bounce back. Next question comes from Blinky, $20 donation. Oh my God, thank you so much. And it says, I want to throw this out there. One of the level designers of Sonic Heroes was hospitalized due to Sega's crunch culture. And we can hear you now, Nimso.
Yeah.
All right, so
brilliant.
One of the level designers
just
for Sonic...
about to switch to my phone.
This is actually, you're gonna be interested in hearing this, Nimso. So one of the level designers from Sonic Heroes was actually hospitalized due to Sega's crunch culture, and while recovering, he played Jak 2 and Jak 3, and that's where Shadow the Hedgehog came from. I read that in the chat a little bit.
I'm not sure if I know what that person is referencing exactly. I thought that it was Azuka that had played Jak after getting his post game finished like holiday. The semantics of it doesn't really matter, but like, yes, that is true. That did happen. I do remember that statement in another interview at some time a long time ago.
Well, good thing Nimso really likes Sonic Heroes. Somebody is appreciating it a lot.
The blood, sweat, and tears, yeah.
Nimso, did we lose you again? Oh my God, Nimso!
Oh no!
No!
I really want to hear his answer. This is so sad.
So Nimso at some point will tell us how he became a game developer. Maybe it's secret, and he's like, "Oh no, my mic's muted. I can't answer."
Okay, he's switching to mobile, so.
Okay, that should do it, or make it worse. So chat, hey, you have an opportunity to ask us even more questions. And yes, I'm well aware we haven't been looking directly at the chat, but that's kind of why the last video of this was a video and not a live stream. I like the element of people being able to ask questions to the developers. And the way that it worked in the first episode is there was just like so many donations, and that it was easier to kind of organize them because the super chats go in all one place, and I can look at them afterwards after we get to the end of a topic, so I don't have to, you know, scroll up through the chat trying to dig for a question. So, but I think the live stream element of it being live, I think it promotes more discussion, right? The chat is participating, even though we're not reading it, they're talking to each other and learning and meeting maybe new people. So I'm going to alternate between videos and live streams with this series. I think we can hear you now, Nimso. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Just letting you know. Okay, no problem. Yeah, you carry on with the little remaining part there for a second.
Oh, I actually got right to the end, so it's a perfect segue. So Nimso, how did you get into game dev? How did you become a game dev?
Yeah, sorry about the trouble there. Windows 10 does not like the internet. Yeah, my last attempt at streaming, which was my first attempt at streaming, was 1 minute of streaming and then 1 minute of reconnecting for 2 hours. Brilliant, beautiful.
Yay! Sorry that happened.
But yeah, mobile far better. Like no problem with Wi-Fi. Yeah, this one was it's a special one for me because it's kind of relevant as well. I played Super Mario and Sonic when I was like 4 years old, and from that moment on, I basically decided I'm a game developer, and that's it. Right, that was the moment. Was playing Sonic, playing Mario, 4 years old, 5 years old, and boom, that's it. That was set for me. The rest of my life was set. And really, I kind of started in that side of things pretty quickly. I mean, my father got me into graphic design when I was about 8 years old. He got me Photoshop, got me started with Dreamweaver as well, so learning website design and stuff. And then by 12 years old, I started programming. Right? And my aim was always from that point on just Mario, Sonic. I want to be able to make a Mario game. And if you look at on my YouTube channel, you can see that's exactly what I did. Was just like the focus. I did
so
go
based. I'm so happy
So
your
based.
inner child like got that W. Like I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of that's the thing, right? And this is what I wanted to jump in with was what you'd said, Evan, on that side of things was the kind of the networking stuff, but also you focusing on the thing in total, right? And that's kind of the method that I went, whereas it was not, there was no officialness to how I got into any form of development. I was doing games, sort of saying, look at me, I'm making games, when I was using Game Maker, which a lot of young people will have heard of Game Maker now, but I was using it 15 years ago, so it was a little bit different back then. But yeah, I also had something called 3D Game Studio, which was another engine, way before I had access to Unity or Unreal or anything like that. But when I went to college and university, for us, it's university, I think, is about the same level as college in the US.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And for me, university, I did do computers, I did do computing as a degree, and completed that. But really, I didn't focus on game dev. I didn't actually, a few of my friends were doing game dev there in the same university, but I didn't. And it only really improved my programming slightly. They touched upon graphics, they touched upon programming, but really it was just a slight improvement. The majority of that was coming from text-based tutorials, because 4K per second ain't gonna get video at the time. Google Video was kind of possible, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of the process of becoming that type of game dev, which is more focused on your own, trying to get something of your own name, right? Where you build a brand, rather than, my aim was never to get into a job. And quite frankly, this is my first and last job in game dev, and hopefully my last job ever. It's actually my post last job ever, because I already made a video 3 years ago, saying, hey, I'm out of a job now, finally I'm a full-time game dev. And then Ubisoft came along a year later, so it was just purely luck, right? And that's it just depends on what you're after, really, because if you want to be a game dev and you think you want to get into industry and that's it, then that's fine. The process of going through university, whatever, teaches you what you need, and honestly, you will learn probably a lot more via YouTube, and via the right types of people who will teach you. You will likely learn a lot more about making games and making them good and making them in your own style. But then really just the qualifications will get you into the industry, and that makes sense. And of course, the networking has a major element there, because especially with the internet nowadays, everyone's already networking. So you kind of at least have to be at that level where everyone else is, with Instagram and everything. You just kind of have this active connection with everybody else. So that's like the base level has been lifted. But if you want to go into game dev the way that I felt, which is, it's not just that I want to be in the industry, I want to be a brand in the industry. And for that, you want to focus a little bit more on, what can I do to make games in my own way? And that does mean you kind of have to touch upon a lot of bases as well. And for me, it meant I'd started as graphic design. I went into programming because I knew the power of programming, and it would allow me to do these things. So now I can do my level design, I do my character modeling, I rig them, I animate them, every little bit of it is kind of necessary, in my personal opinion, right? And that's just, it's purely what you're passionate about. Again, if you feel like you are super passionate as a graphic designer and you can do really well in that, then you should be aiming to try and get into a team or get into the industry. And again, it just depends on whether you are after just getting into the industry, in which case you might end up working for a big company, or you want to get into a team and have something that's much more yours, where you work with a smaller team and make that into the brand, right? Because even if you're not the top guy, even if you're not the one doing everything, even working in a small team has a lot more potential for you to be more important and more creative control in that space. That's the way I feel.
You're absolutely right, and I can actually give an anecdote from my own personal life. Right when I was about to graduate theater performance school, the theater performance program I specifically took was all about devising your own shows, because they're aware that auditions suck for actors and they very rarely get them work. So they teach you actually how to make your own shows. So that's exactly what we did after. We put together a small group of like 5 or 6 people. We put on a very small tabletop puppetry show in a small venue, but it sold out for an entire week. And because we were very strategic, we made it very like tight knit and a small thing. It was sold out, it was full, and everyone was talking about it, and we couldn't sit everybody. But it made us seem like we had something going on right away. And then people were like, what are you working on next? Can I work on you? You just gotta put together a team of people that you trust. And again, that's why you gotta be a good person. What's that?
I would go with the word with you as opposed to on you.
What did I say? Work on you? Did I say that?
Yeah,
work with you. It's just a streamer's curse. I meant with you. I don't know why I said that. Regardless, Nimsoni, you're so good at finding flaws. Focus on frontiers, not in me, okay? Don't focus on my flaws.
I've already found all the flaws there. I need something new now. A new challenge.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, no, that's just me being facetious. My apologies.
No,
go ahead.
Good. All right, so we have a couple more donations, but they're really just showing gratitude for you two. So let me just shower you guys with some love. So we got 10 pounds from Channel Pup saying, big thanks to the 3 of you for presenting your informed perspectives and discussion. Sending my respect, regards, and gratitude. Thank you so much, Channel Pup. Another one is Noctumorous. I think I said tumor and I shouldn't have. Noctumorous? I have very bad eyes. Is that an R and an N next to each other or an M? Nocturnus.
Nocturnus.
Okay. My camera is in a position where I have to be far away from my screen and my eyes are awful. Okay, whatever. Anyway, they say they donate $20. Thank you so much, and says, always great to hear from you all. Love you guys.
That's so nice.
I mean, this has been a really great discussion, and honestly, I'm at the point where I have no idea why I did anything else. Honestly, I highly encourage everyone to copy me. Please copy me. Do stuff like this. If you know somebody that's in game dev, you know, maybe they want to talk about Sonic games and help iron out the discussion.
One more tiny little point.
Yeah.
I really wanted to say this one, and I never put it in a video. The puffin birds, the little puffin birds. Oh, I love them in Sonic Frontiers. So if you look at the little, even the first video, the one with the little hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Just next to the hamster wheel on the rock and on the grass, there's these little puffin birds.
Oh wait, I don't know if aren't those like rock
Aren't
creatures?
they like the rock? I don't know what they're called, but like they're Korok
Little
equivalent.
Something.
They're like
I don't know, but I've been calling them puffin birds. And yeah, it's just the best thing. Like this is the best thing I've taken away from Sonic Frontiers.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but those aren't puffin birds. Does it suck now that they're not puffin birds?
I don't care. They're still puffin birds.
They're very cute.
Oh, I thought Nimsoni was gonna go, I don't care. Like they still are awesome, but you just went, nope. They're puffin birds. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, they're really cute. It's really hard to tell with like the image quality of like the grass, but like they're little rock little fellas.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out as well, but I just kind of settled with the little puffy birds, and that's it. We're sticking with that.
Sweet. They're puffin birds
And
now.
if they're not, then you know you're gonna see little puffy birds in my games. So there, like
There you
it
go.
doesn't matter whether they are or not. They exist regardless.
We're making games right now, live on stream.
This is game dev, baby. This is game dev.
We did it.
This is game design for me anyway. I just take ideas from everything I see in life. When I'm watching the world go by and a cat jumps past, scratches someone, and they fall over and land their face in a drain, and to me, I'm just like, why am I helping this person? I could be turning this into a game. Sorry, everyone. I'm an insane man.
You
It's
really
really
love
like that,
making
though.
games ever since you were 4. You knew, and I'm so happy that you're still happy making them. That's incredibly wholesome and awesome to have you here to talk about it too, and share that with people that are also passionate about maybe not game dev but Sonic as well. And I think that's the common ground is passion, right? If we just share our passions with each other and we remind ourselves that we really all have the same goal. We want to see Sonic succeed. I've always believed that, like, a lot of the discourse, two things I've believed. A lot of the discourse is really funny to me. I started, Leanna knows this. I started making fun of things like that, like joking about it in parody. And now I still see the humor in it, which is why I'm able to participate in it without getting exhausted. But now it just intrigues me, right? It's still funny how, like, 0 to 100 people get about stuff like that. That's just funny. That, like, literally in comedy, you will write things that surprisingly escalate quickly, like, to be funny, and that's what fans do a lot of the time. So that's just funny. But it's interesting why it gets to that point and why people feel so personal about it. And so I have this, like, never-ending inspiration to just try to see what I can do to find a middle ground, and this is the closest I feel like I've ever come. So thank you
So
both.
the internet pushes that.
Right?
The internet pushes that concept where what you would normally have in a group of 3 friends making a joke that just rolls on and on. Well, now you've got 3,000 of them. So, or in this case, 400. And it just rolls extensively, and it becomes an incredible in-joke where everyone's in on it.
So let's create the momentum, all 400 of us, guys, and roll the conversation to our friends that care about Sonic. Remember to be critical and hype. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be one by itself, the other. You can be both. We can all still have a discussion that's constructive, and you don't have to be going 0 to 100. Or you can, and I'll just, like, laugh because that's so funny. Anyway. 1,000 thank yous to Lyanna and Nimso for being here today. I'll definitely have you two back if we can line up our schedules again. I have got to eat my dinner.
Yo, same.
And I know it's incredibly late for you, Nimso. So thank you so much for
I don't care. I sleep
being
at
up late.
4 every day. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah. By the way, next stream, I'm hoping to have you on my stream. How's about that?
Me? That I would be honored.
Yeah, when the day comes that I can finally run a stream without disconnecting within 2 minutes, then yeah, fair enough.
Sweet. Yeah, so let me know when that happens, and I'll be there. We'll think
I'm
of
always
something we can
down.
do.
Yeah, it's because I'm sure by then you'll have a library of so many people you'll have talked to, so we'll be able to have a different conversation, I'm sure.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Even this time, I was surprised. Like I said, I came into the stream, I was running late. I literally started preparing, the assets were preset from the last ones, but I was just getting my Streamlabs, everything, like, set up, 15 minutes to go. And I was still, like, hot from biking in, like, 93-degree weather, like, uphill. I look sweaty right now. I made it happen, though. I don't even know how I didn't mess anything up. There have been streams where I've been more relaxed and the mic was muted for like 20 minutes. I don't blame you, Nimso, at all for having trouble with live streaming. It looks easy, but it's not.
Oh, no, that's not me. That's just the internet. My mic was fine the whole time. Dude, it glows when it's on and it doesn't glow when it's muted. I know. Don't worry. I have never once double muted on Teams yet. In the whole 2 years I've
You're a legend. You're an absolute legend.
I don't do that. I challenge myself to never be that way. Right now, it's so unfortunate that the internet makes it look that way.
You're
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I'm
we're
a
at that
klutz when it
stage.
comes to streams. The chat knows that I
But yeah.
kind of like it. I think I'm gonna do the next stream where I'm muted for 10 minutes just for fun.
It's very authentic, you know? Like, I don't know, like you're a person.
I guess,
Yeah.
but I'm klutzy. I'm a klutzy person. That's all good. Anyway, I literally am melting because my door has to be closed so that my girlfriend has privacy. But this ring light is turning me into a puddle, so I gotta go. But again, I really enjoyed this discussion. I would stay longer if I wasn't so hot. I honestly. But I really gotta go. Thank you, chat, for being here and supporting us. All the donations are incredibly helpful to keep Tails channel going. It's a whole team of people, a lot of love, and it's not easy to run this ship as tight as we have it run. It can be tricky. So thank you all for supporting us. Yeah, I hope you two have a great night, whatever you guys are gonna do. I hope it's relaxing and wholesome. I don't know.
Thank you. I had a great time. I'd love to do this anytime I can.
I'll definitely have you two back. This was a pleasure. All right. Peace. Have a great
Always
night.
be wary. If I'm on your stream, I'll be talking forever.
What did you
See
say,
ya.
Sony?
Bye.
Oh.
I said always be wary if I'm on the stream. Then it's 2 hours minimum because I will never stop talking.
Oh, we learned that today, but you know what? I had a feeling, but that's just good. We need this. All right. Peace. Have a good night.